Charmin, going live on the Facebook. Oh, it's not letting me fucking. Oh, there we go. And we're recording and we're live and we are going.
Reality Activated Report.
That's the intro.
Nice.
Your new favorite song.
I like how you're dead center, by the way.
He's the center.
All
of
eyes
the,
on me.
He's the center of the universe. So this is my sister-in-law's brother, Danny Hallam. He is a former teacher and director at the School of Metaphysics and core team of Purpose Spark. Welcome to the Reality Observation Report.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah.
It's a mouthful to say for what the title is.
Yeah, but it's a mouthful to say intelligent things.
Yeah.
I feel like all intelligent things that you say are a mouthful.
Well, technically everything's a mouthful. Sometimes I want to eat this microphone. I was looking at that one and thinking oh man, I kind of miss those filters.
Oh, the pop filters?
Yeah, because I just want to bite into this one.
Because this makes you feel like it's like an ice cream cone.
Something like that. Like the old ones, I mean, an ice cream and you shoot it and it's hits.
And
Popper balls.
Yeah, and he's got a fancy mic cord.
Yeah.
But I feel like all of the, in order to sound, does it make you sound smart if you know larger words?
It depends on how you use them, I think, right?
I think it depends on the listener.
Ooh, yeah. Because if they can't translate what you're saying,
Then the whole meaning behind what you're trying to say is lost.
yeah. Yeah, because if you say metaphysics to someone that doesn't know metaphysics, that means nothing.
Is it physics about physics?
It's physics about meta.
Well, I always take meta and the approach is metafiction, which is fiction about fiction. So physics about physics.
Wait, fiction about fiction?
Yeah, so you putting yourself into the story and letting the characters know that they're a character in the story. That's metafiction. Like what Grant Morrison does. Yeah, so I just take the approach of everything's meta is about itself.
So is that like Inception, like a dream within a dream?
Yeah, that's meta. So you do Inception stuff?
I've had some Inception style experiences for sure. One of my favorite dreams ever, I was actually in this giant mansion, and there's 6 different rooms, and each room I walked in would give me a different high to a different drug.
That's kind of cool.
So I was just kind of walking in and out of this house, and the last one I went into was kind of the DMT room, and that's the one I ended up staying in for quite some time. But it was a fantastic dream.
Do they have a room with caffeine?
No. I think it was pot, it was opiates, it was mushrooms, DMT, and I think the other one was cocaine.
So no alcohol or anything? Did you say alcohol? Okay.
No.
Sorry, I'm just typing up Danny's thing so people know.
His Twitter handle?
Yeah.
I don't tweet.
No, just what, so if someone pops on and sees a comment, they know that it's not just Barry and I talking bullshit. We actually have someone that knows some knowledge of something that has some substance to what he's saying. Are you able to share that?
That's what I'm trying to figure out right now.
You should be able to share it. I think that I have the, you just joined. Yeah, public. Anyone on or off Facebook, yeah. Should be able to share.
There we go.
It's weird seeing that in a mirror. Usually
Seeing what in the mirror?
So in the video, I'm on the right, but I feel like I'm on the left. It's mirrored up.
Oh, yeah. Flipped.
Yeah.
It's you're in a pair. Did you get to share it?
I shared it.
Nice.
Success.
Yes, technology. So back to what exactly did you do at the School of Metaphysics? What did that entail?
So the study at the School of Metaphysics, my understanding of meta simply means beyond. we studied all sorts of stuff, universal laws. So kind of like the movie The Secret Law of Attraction, we took that to a greater depth as well. They taught 13 universal laws: law of prosperity and abundance, cause and effect, all sorts of juicy stuff. Spent a lot of time with dreams and dream interpretation, into lucid dreams and astral projection, telepathy, mind-to-mind communication. We really just depends how long you stayed and how far you took it.
So what about like dreams?
What about them?
So, so what? How much are dreams actually like real? Or like how much stuff that's like, because we've talked about dreams before, about like pondering whether or not stuff that happens in your dream, like where the information comes from. Like, is it just like randomness stored in your subconscious, or is it fragments of things you saw through your life just kind of combining in this random environment? Or could it be like messages or?
Yeah, so the way my approach to dreams is every time you go to sleep, it's basically a feedback loop from, you can call it your soul, your subconscious, whatever you want to identify it with. And it's kind of this, you can take every dream as a message to really letting you know how your conscious waking life is affecting your internal life. Also, the thing about dreams is you can take them to so many layers. What I would, with teaching dream interpretation, I would tell all of my students, so every dream you have, you're going to interpret the way I'm going to show you. And then you can continue to take it deeper and deeper. You can get into like, seeing dead loved ones in a dream, visitation dreams, premonition dreams. But you can always kind of come back to that basic interpretation, which is just finding the symbology in everything. Our subconscious mind doesn't speak a language, it sees images. So
Right.
once you start to identify with the images and what those actually mean, you can really pick apart any dream that you have and find some sort of meaning, and then apply it to your day-to-day life as well.
Okay.
That's what I try to do. Is every dream I have is like, okay, what is the context of this?
So are you saying that that what we perceive it as the meaning is up to our interpretation about it? It's not necessarily like a direct message from somewhere?
Well, I'd say it's a direct message from yourself.
Oh. So like you're kind of like your subconscious?
Mm-hmm.
So last night I had a very vivid lucid dream of Mercedes and I were involved with this like gun. He wasn't a robber, but he was like some sort of criminal asshole, and he had like a little Yorkie puppy. But Mercedes and I were like standing off to the side, and he walks in, and there's this girl that I don't know standing in the door, and he walks in and shoots her in the head, and then she drops, and then he walks over to us, and he's about to kill us, but then he notices that we have Dolly, my parents' dog, that we have Dolly, and I guess he loves Yorkies, and he's like, oh, I love Yorkies, so he doesn't kill us. So like something like that, like how would you interpretate that?
Yeah, so with the basic dream interpretation, basically you just follow two rules, and that's the first rule is that everything in your dream is about you and represents a part of you. So with that, even though this guy comes in with a gun, you're actually dreaming about a part of yourself that's forcing some sort of change within you. When animals come in dreams, they're going to represent some sort of habit or habitual thought form or action. When you think about any animals, they're very, instinctual. So they just go do what they know what to do. So that's going to bring insight to any habit. So with that dream particularly, you're with your girlfriend. So that's going to represent some sort of aspect with commitment, a deeper aspect of the self. And you're getting chased by this robber, criminal guy. So there's something happening within you that maybe you're not comfortable with. Maybe some sort of habitual way of thinking, pattern of action that's actually robbing something from yourself.
Okay. So could that be interpreted as like music? Like I'm not playing enough music, I'm not spending enough time on music?
Absolutely, absolutely. So when it comes to the symbols, they're very universal, but then the dream is so personal. So what I can do is help put the pieces together, and then like you just did, you're like, well, the first thing that came to your mind was like, maybe I'm not playing enough music. That's probably exactly what it is.
Right. That because I have a lot of dreams, like, and I think that you do too. We've talked about because like he illustrates, makes comics. I don't know what to call it.
I just illustrator.
Illustrator. But we both have this like burning desire, like we're not feeling like fulfilled. We're not doing enough. You know, I'm not producing enough music. He's not doing enough art, and we're both like tied down to these jobs that take up our time. But we want to have the freedom to just do whatever we want. So I think that is kind of what you're talking about, and that dives into our dreams. You know, that desire, that want. What's like a symbol in your dreams of where you're like comfortable? Like what would like the sign in, like, let's say I'm where I want to be in life. How could I recognize that in my dreams? Or is it possible?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind is sex, which represents creation, how you're creating whatever it is you want in your life. So obviously you could have dreams with sex that's telling you you're not creating very well, but typically how I know I'm on point is when I'm having lots of sex in my dreams. It's like, sweet, yes, this is awesome. The dream is a lot of fun just in itself, and then I know that I'm using my creative forces to create the reality I desire.
What if they have blank faces? You can't figure out who they are.
That means you're creating with some part of yourself you don't understand. There's no identity
Ooh.
to it.
Do you have sex with people with no faces?
I'm like, when you were talking about this, it's like, dude, I don't have sex dreams at all. Like, I'm not comfortable at all. Because my dreams are just more about like something that seems very normal, but to everybody else. But to me, there's like one thing that's off. And it's like nobody's really understanding like what that one thing is off. But like, I can just like pick it out. I had this one dream. I mentioned it on the podcast before. It just like really stuck with me. Is I was at my friend's house, and he's at this garage, and he was going under it with his dog as it was shutting. He's like, hurry up, come inside before they come. And I was like, who comes? And then I saw these things. There's like this retaining wall, and these creatures come up, and the one's green, blue, and the other one's red. And the red one was coming closer, and I decided to stay to see what this thing is, because like, holy shit, another form of like humanoid thing. It was like this pixie kind of character, short. The green and the blue one just ran off. I think they were scared, but this red one came up, and it was a girl. I could tell just by the figure it was a girl. And when she smiled at me, her teeth were extremely sharp. And instead of me trying to freak out, I was like, okay, well, let's just see what happens. And in my head, I was like, I wonder if humans can procreate with this thing. And so she comes up to me and then embraces me, and then started swarming around us with vines, and then these flowers, like flowers I'd never seen before, just started blooming. And that was the end of the dream. I think I mentioned that one on the podcast.
Yeah,
I was like, wow, for me, how I took that one as is just like, that was something unknown, and the idea of everything was just surrounded in beauty, rather than me just being terrified of it.
Wow. Yeah, I think you're pretty much spot on. That's also the things with dreams. It's, there's so much happening with your mind in your waking conscious mind and the subconscious mind that you always want to pay attention to those thoughts or that commentary that you add when you're speaking of a dream, because it tells you so much.
Yeah.
It's like we're almost automatically interpreting it ourselves, and if we pay just a little bit more attention to those little details in it, you can learn so much. A big trick with interpreting dreams for me is, especially when it's it's a new class or something like that, and like they're reading from their dream journal, and every other sentence they're like, yeah, they're reading the dream, and then they look up at you and they tell you like some sort of commentary that they're experiencing, and like almost the commentary would give me so much more insight into their mind and their consciousness than the actual dream would.
Yeah.
So, on top of dreams, what else is kind of practiced or talked about or taught in the School of Metaphysics?
Yeah.
Like, what's another big like focal point?
Yeah, so the School of Metaphysics, it's a 501c3 nonprofit. I left the organization about a year and a half ago, maybe a year ago. Time is interesting. But it's really a very practical education. you start with simple concentration exercises and beginning to learn dreams. Then you move into meditation and universal laws and study. They teach and study different scriptures like the Bhagavad Gita, Matthew from the Bible, and they read the scripture together and they interpret it as if you're interpreting your own dream. And within that aspect, it really kind of you can have some profound experiences, especially for me, growing up half-ass Catholic and like going through this period of religion, God, everything doesn't exist, and like being uncomfortable with saying like Jesus and this.
Right.
And then having the experience of like looking at this scripture and interpreting it as if it's my own dream I had last night changed my whole perspective on all of it. It's like there's truth there. It's going to help you out. It's going to give you some sort of wisdom if you're looking at it if you take the dogma glasses off, you know.
Right. Is there a specific person that is like, is there a right or wrong person to follow or believe in like the school of metaphysics? Like, is it just Jesus? Is it Arjuna? Is it Shiva? Is it Muhammad? Or is it Buddha? Or is it kind of like a collective of all of them?
Yeah, they call themselves like an interfaith organization. You can bring whoever you want to it. Really, it doesn't matter your background, your religious beliefs. You don't even have to believe in spirit or God or anything. It's going to give you an opportunity to understand your mind and the way your mind works. And if you have the desire to initiate more of a spiritual background to it, you can.
Yeah.
It really can fit into any lifestyle.
Was there people there that were like firm believers in the like Jesus and God and that sort of thing?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Not like Jesus is your savior and the only answer, but like I perceive Jesus, he's just like the master teacher. Like if I really want to understand how to teach a little bit better, I'll put my attention on Jesus. So
I thought, and I think we've talked about this before, but so like kind of how I view it is like Christianity, Catholicism, the people that God are the focal point, Jesus are the focal point, for lack of a better term. Like Jesus is like kind of like similar to Buddha. It's just that the way that the Catholics and the Christians teach the religion, it's like, no, this is it. Jesus is it. God is it. There's no one else. Mm-hmm. But the way that I think about it is that they're all just teachers. They have the word. Jesus chose to speak the word of God. Buddha chose to teach enlightenment, and they all kind of have their thing. And like, there's been modern day people like that, kind of like who's Maharishi, who brought back TM, Transcendental Meditation. I think that's his name. Maharishi. But there's been other people like along the way that have brought teachings back, like Ram Dass. He's kind of an extension of what's his face? I can't remember his name, but he was like a teaching of a guru. So would you say like these kinds of people are more like gurus than they are like the end all be all of faith?
Like you say these people as in like the Buddhas, the Krishnas, the Jesus. Yeah, I think they're avatars, they're enlightened beings that just come back with knowledge and wisdom to help us attain some sort of enlightenment. Like most people in India and of the Hindu faith, they just think Jesus was a reincarnation of Krishna. Let me tell you about this experience I had meditating in Haleakala, which is the volcano that made Maui. I was there about a month and a half ago. My father passed away earlier this year, and I spent 3 weeks in Hawaii just to kind of do my thing, process that, and had a little bit of my own little ceremony within the crater of Haleakala, and then had like a 2-hour open-eyed meditation, and had this experience of moving into the astral realm and both Jesus and Buddha coming and approaching me and having a conversation with me. My experience of perceiving Jesus was this just like love thing that went straight to my heart chakra and stimulated my heart chakra in ways that I had not experienced before. And we had a conversation about forgiveness and loving and accepting myself and continuing the path that I'm on. And then he kind of stepped back, and Buddha started talking to me more as like the scientist, and he went straight to the third eye and had this stimulation. So it was a profound experience for me because it made sense with all my studies of Christianity and Buddhism, how, yeah, you know, Jesus, divine love, forgiveness, heart-centered, heart chakra. Buddha, very much, I want to understand the mind and consciousness, and basically the scientist of his self. And I'm like, oh yeah, third eye, totally, for sure. And then I started thinking about, you know, kind of other enlightened masters or deities that could represent a different chakra. I'm like, with understanding the study of the Bhagavad Gita, like Krishna just made sense to be the crown chakra and like the complete connection to divine. It was a really, really powerful experience. And yeah, it just gave me some different insights on, they're all here to teach us. It was like, why we got to fight about who's who, you know? They all have their role.
Right. So I guess that, to me, that just means that, you know, they're all there to do different things. Like, not one person can be like fully encompassing of the other, which I think that, like, Barry and I always discuss how silly we think people becoming ridiculously, you know, perverse and obsessed with religion is, because it's like they're all like, God is real, Jesus is real, if you don't believe anything else, that's it, you know, they're done with you. But it's like, well, everyone, I feel like if you take away from a bunch of different aspects, it's a lot better of a mentality to have than just like to believe in one, the end all be all.
So you're more of like an all theist.
Sure.
Well, I like that, an
yeah.
all theist.
Yeah.
What is the word for what like, that's not necessarily you, like, not trying to say, you know, get what you believe in or whatever, but like, what is the term for like that kind of enlightened, I guess?
I'm really not that sure.
Yeah.
If there's a specific term.
A traveler for knowledge,
Sure.
Someone trying to get all the knowledge.
I think that's what we're all trying to do.
Yeah.
To some degree.
Get the knowledge. Give me the knowledge. Give me the fucking knowledge.
Like at the end
Get
of
over here.
Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Yeah. Sometimes I find it so hard and like overwhelming when you're like, man, when you get in those like little moods where like you feel like you're like happy and like you're figuring shit out and you're just bumping along your little way, but then you like try to think of like something to read or something, you cannot find anything to read to be the purpose of, or like, you know, to be what it is specifically that you want to be thinking about or like learning about. That's how I feel when I talk about religion. I'm like, I don't know if I want to read the Bible or...
Oh, for me, because you asked me my opinion, was that I don't ever think about what religious text should I read.
You don't ever... Well, yeah.
No. I think it all was just, personally for me, it's just, I think it's more of a control thing. Rather, because like there is some sort of thing that we all seek and people find it within something different. Like it could be, you know, TM, or it could be Christianity, or it could be just whatever they believe in. We're all searching for like that one thing. I think ultimately it's just connection with other people, because we do live isolated lives within our own brain. Even as we sit here and talk, like we're still in our own head, like thinking about stuff and talking. It's just, how do we share this sort of communication? Because language is just extremely simple, and I can drink my tea here, but you can never get the sensation of me drinking the tea. I can describe to you the characteristics and notes of it, but you just can't. So like people who go to these groups, right, that have their specific costumes they wear and rituals that they have, they feel a connection to that whole group. And I can see like the whole point of that, like the allure to that. But to me, because I'm a high level skeptic, it's just like that doesn't get you anywhere closer than to where I am. And when people have like certainties of things, that's kind of where I'm just like, like you can't tell me for certain, because my thing is just to break it down, like logically, and then kind of refute what they're saying. But I get the idea that like if you say like what you're saying, we're all just trying to like, okay, this certain deity hit here, this one hit here, that type of thing, is you're feeling different aspects. It's just this character that you have. It could be Batman, or it could be Jesus, but there's a story in there that you're just putting a name and idea to, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely, it makes sense. You know, I can't tell you for sure what's happening in my experiences. It's just my experience. What you're just speaking of kind of reminds me of Joseph Campbell's like the hero's journey. You know, everyone puts themselves in the story, and that's just a way to kind of break down the details in our mind and see a projection of ourselves to understand ourselves a little bit better.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because I've been thinking a lot over the past few months as everything that's external is only real because your brain interprets it. Because everything that you have, it may feel like you're holding a cold glass in your hand, but that's because of these sensory inputs that are in your hand that make your brain think that your hand is cold from holding a cold glass. But neither the glass or your hand actually exists. It's just what your interpretation of the stimuli. Like, for an example, you can see all the colors, right? Except for ultraviolet. You can't see that. But we can have filters to show ultraviolet. And I feel like that, to me, is reality. So, like, in a quantum world, that stuff exists. There's nothing that, like this table, there's nothing unique about this table saying that it's hard or has color. It's just our brain interpreting that this table is hard and has color.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all illusion, every little bit of it. And I've reached that point a couple times on like the spiritual path. It's like what's the point? Nothing's even real, but and I still haven't quite answered that question.
Yeah.
That you know, that's the question.
How do you get through that though? It's like, okay, so if you know that everything is meaningless beyond the meaning that you give it, how do you get past the fact of like, oh, I'm going to die one day? Like for you personally, I'm not saying like, hey, give me the answer to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, how do you, because we each differ on how like our ultimate demise. What's yours?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Barry and I talk about what we text back and forth and converse about what we think is there in the end.
Yeah, I think that what really got me onto this path was losing a really close friend of mine to suicide. And like my beliefs at that point was like, we just go in the ground and everything. And it gave me this shift of like, that cannot be the reality. I can't live with that. I cannot think of her just being decomposing and that's it. So I found myself a copy of like the Tibetan Book of the Dead and got into
Where the Grateful Dead got their name.
Was it? I didn't know that.
Yeah, Grateful Dead got their name from the Tibetan Book of the Dead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Learned
Sorry.
something.
Didn't mean to interrupt.
All good. And then like the Buddhists teach like the bardos or the in-between states, which I think it's just all levels of consciousness, and this physical realm being, you know, the most dense, so we can touch this table, or we're actually not even touching it. And yeah, we just lose our bodies, and then we go into these realms. I think the first place we go is the same place where we dream, and I think depending on, you know, whatever else played out in your life, you can keep going up in level and level and level, and then you come back down into a different life, or you transcend it all. And what's beyond that, I don't even bother trying to figure out.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've talked about that too. We've talked about how did the universe get here, and you know, the God particle and that whole sort of thing. And it's just like, I mean, you could talk in circles for hours.
That's my favorite though.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What were you saying though? You sent me that clip or that excerpt from that book you're reading that was talking about the or did I send it to you?
No, I sent it to you.
Yeah, about like the neurons and stuff.
Yeah, everything is just neurons firing in your brain.
Yeah, but I sent you the article talking about how
yours was
proof of the afterlife.
Yeah, because I mentioned is the lady, because like the stuff that my mind immediately goes to, okay, be a skeptic, was the lady, her like astral projection was her physical form. Like how does your physical form the same look as your spiritual form?
Right. But
is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. We read this article. We read this article where it said that there's proof because there's, what is it when you die?
There's these things stored in, I forget what they were called in the thing.
Microbial, like microtubes in your brain
like
or something.
Tubes in your brain that like you were actually stored into.
Yeah, like the ether, I guess.
Interesting.
And that's what happens like when you die. they start to slowly fade away, but there's like a time, I guess they're saying there's like a time period where it's still there. So that's why people have like, I think it's like 13 minutes or something, but like people that have like, that are dead for 13 minutes, they come back and they said they see the light and that sort of thing. That's kind of like the scientific proof. But what we've been talking about lately via text, and what I've been thinking about is like, so your soul, who you are, right? The essence of you, that's not your heart, that's not your brain, it's something else, right? It's the God factor, the God particle, or the whatever. What do you think would happen if you did a brain transplant? So like my belief is that if you sever the connectors from your spinal cord to your brain 100%, like if that is completely if that's completely severed, then that's the end of like quote unquote you. I feel like if you put your brain back in another person's body, connect it, systematically, and like the cords, you soldered all the shit back together, I feel like the essence is gone. Because I think that when life is birthed or whatever happens with life, that's when it's like the magnet that sucks in the ether from up there, the soul from up there. But I've just been thinking like, well, what do you think happen? Like, do you think a brain transplant would be possible? Because this kind of like coincides with death and what actually happens in when you die. Because when you die, your system shuts down, but your brain still works for a certain extended period of time.
Until the oxygen runs
So is
out.
that where like you actually live?
And you're asking the question of you as the perspective of the soul.
Yeah.
That's a tough one. Has that a brain transplant like that actually ever happened?
No. No,
Okay.
brain
I think-
transplant has never happened.
Yeah, I think
didn't
once
think
you
so.
sever a certain part of your brain, it's gone.
Right. Kind of like like when people get in certain accidents and their brain was depleted of oxygen for too long, so then it just kind of like slowly shuts down. The motory functions don't work the same. All those functions don't work the same. It's kind of like the same thing. But I wonder, when that happens, are you still in there?
Well, they did a study when they would find criminals guilty and they would just cut their heads off. One scientist is like, I want you to blink for as long as you can. And so they would hold their head and just sit there and just watch the eye movements and blink, and it was 30 seconds.
They told him to blink before they killed them?
Yeah, it's like, no. When your head is cut off and they hold your head up, blink as many times as you can before you're just gone. And they timed it, and it was 30 seconds. So, like, you're still consciously aware of everything. You can see, smell, all that sort of stuff. Your just head's cut off. You're actually physically doing something for 30 seconds. But how long you're in your head for, no idea. But they could do stuff. They could, like, blink for 30 seconds.
So did they tell them that after they cut their head off or before?
Before. Like, so they're going up. They're going to put their head in. Guillotine comes down, cut, hold their head up. They're blinking for 30 seconds.
That's fucking crazy.
And they can move their eyes.
That is wild.
Yeah.
So they're still looking at you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that kind of makes sense, though, because I do believe that a lot of our body's made up from electricity. Neurons firing and that sort of thing. They're just small electrical synapses in your brain and whatnot. So that would make sense, because like when a light burns out, there's like a blast of light before it burns out, and then there's a slow burn, and if you look at it quick enough, you can still see that little bit of burning until it fades out. So that leads me to believe that electricity is kind of what powers us, but I don't necessarily think it's like electricity. I think it's some other sort of force or something.
It's really weird being an animal, because trees are connected. Like, plants are connected to like their source, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where they take photons and convert them into energy. Whereas we aren't connected to anything. Like cats, dogs, humans. We're our own operating system. Like, we don't need really anything else beyond consuming things. We're just kind of like, I don't know, the whole idea is if you sever the taproot, the plant's gone. It just will die. It goes, the idea, like, certain aspects of you will still be alive. Like, your atoms are still alive. They'll just decompose into something else. But what the essence of, like what Andrew's saying, is like the you is now gone.
Yeah. So what, in your experience, where is kind of the you derived of? Where does it live, and like where does it go? Did you talk about any of that kind of stuff on your South America trip? Did they, like any of the shamans or anything, talk about that? And we'll get to that whole thing in a little bit too. By the way, Danny's experience in South America at the, what is it, spiritual retreat?
It's a sacred medicine retreat center in outside of Minca, Colombia, in the Sierra Nevada mountains on the northern Caribbean coast.
Yeah, and we'll get to all that. I just don't want to jump into that. I want to naturally get there.
Yeah. So, as far as when does the soul leave the body, I think that's very much uniquely up to the soul. I also think the soul, the subconscious, the unconscious, there's many different perspectives to see it from, knows a lot more than we give it credit for. So when you start to understand like the laws of karma, basically I understand that as like what your soul chose this life because it gave you the greatest path of learning exactly what you needed. I think very much the soul decides when it's ready to leave the body, when it's time to die. And I've had experienced quite a bit of loss and death in this short life already. And every single person that's been close to me, within a week of them passing, I'm communicating with them in my dreams. It's happened since I was 15 or 16 years old.
So is that the way back in? Is that kind of like how you can continue if you reach like a higher plane of understanding and consciousness and you open kind of that thing in your head? Does it make it easier for them when they leave to come back and kind of communicate with you?
Yeah, I think that has something to do with it. It might be one of those just kind of natural abilities that kind of freaked me out at first. Because with the first dream that I really understand what was happening is with my grandma. And so basically the dream I had is we were all she was very, very Catholic. So it was like 2 days after her funeral. And the funeral ends and everyone's leaving the church. And typically after a Catholic mass, the father or the priest is standing at the door, like shaking everyone's hands. And in that dream, she's standing at the door saying goodbye and shaking everyone's hands. And I ended up being the last one in line and like stood there, felt like eternity having a conversation with her and her just, letting me know that like she's where she's been ready to go for a while and all this stuff. And man, changed me completely when I woke up from that sleep. I literally woke up, came conscious, like mid, like crying my eyes out. And I didn't talk about it for anyone for like 3 years. Cause it's like, I was like, that experience was more real to me than waking up and getting a cup of coffee and this and that. So I don't have anyone that will believe me right now. So I'm just going to keep this in my back pocket until I find someone that can help me.
Where were you on like the journey when that happened?
I think I was 17 or 18.
So you hadn't really begun, or
I had begun, but I had no idea I had begun. Was into the Don Juan, Carlos Castaneda books, the kind of shamanistic stuff, more so as an excuse to eat a bunch of drugs and have those experiences. It really wasn't until years later that I started piecing together my first experiences with psychedelics as like profoundly impactful and seeing how I like unconsciously used them as tools earlier in my life.
Right. What do you mean by tools?
Oh man.
Like you said unconsciously started using them as tools?
So in those moments when I was eating the mushrooms and dropping the acid, I was using it as an escape.
Right.
And even through that, trying to escape reality, I still brought in myself new perspectives on what reality actually is. It expanded my ability to perceive reality a little bit deeper, a little bit more differently, kind of think outside of the social norm, out of everything that's been fed to me, and start asking more questions. And it planted a lot of seeds.
Nice, yeah. So back to the kind of what they talk about with the soul and where it goes and stuff, like in the South American context. What did they talk about down there at the retreat? Or what was their kind of message?
You know, and that specific retreat center is very much open to that as well. It's like, bring your beliefs, whatever they are. We can all sit in the same place and drink the same medicine and do the thing.
And by medicine, sorry, just for people watching, medicine.
Yeah. That specific one is the ayahuasca.
Yeah. And ayahuasca is a derivative from the, what root is it? I can't remember the name of the root.
I don't remember the exact name. Copy something maybe, but
yeah. So the ayahuasca is you drink it. They mix a psychedelic root with something else, right? That makes it like okay for you to drink.
Yeah, it's two roots. I don't understand the science behind it a whole lot, but it's my understanding that the root with like the DMT, if you were to just ingest that, your body couldn't break down the DMT to have the experience. And then the other root they mix with it because it based some sort of enzymes in your stomach. It tells them to chill, like relax. Let's ingest this. And it allows you to ingest the DMT, which is the psychedelic chemical in those in that specific vine that gives you that psychedelic experience.
Yeah. So when he's saying the medicine, he's referring to ayahuasca. Which is a hallucinogenic spiritual medicine kind of thing. Yeah, sorry to interrupt. I just didn't know if people knew what that was.
Yeah, no, good. I'm glad you said that. I use the term medicine pretty loosely, and I forget that a lot of people were like, "Oh, Tylenol, like Adderall, what medicine? What are you talking about?" Which, in my perspective, medicine's more so a like the combo, the frog medicine, which is a whole nother story. Like any medicine that feeds your heart, heals your soul.
Yeah. So back to what we were talking about, and like the soul and in that aspect, where it goes and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think dreams are definitely a doorway into understanding that, because I think in our dreams we can go to many, many, many different levels. Like the astral realms, I think that's one of the kind of closest to us, which is pretty far out. And from my experience, a lot of the psychedelics help take you to that place. Yeah, it's challenging to really express my ideals about that. I wish I had a marker board. I could draw it a little better.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to ask is, so when we were talking about death and the soul and you, where, according to like South American shamans, or the teachers of the people that run the taking of the medicine and that whole ceremony, I guess. What is their understanding of it, and what do they like preach as of the afterlife or your soul or where it goes, where it comes from, that sort of thing?
With those cultures down there, I haven't had that conversation with anybody.
Oh, really? They don't talk about that?
Yeah.
Like when you?
I mean, if it comes up, they will, but it's not this like.
Oh shit! Sorry.
There's no preaching. It's very much the guys who are working with the medicine just receive everyone exactly where they are, and work with them at that point. They do an one-on-one interview with everybody. I didn't ask them that question because I was down there when I found out my dad died, and I sat with the ayahuasca like 8 days later. So that was pretty much all in my own experience, in my own head, and my emotions and my grief, and just trying to just believe that. So I really didn't dig with anything. I was just kind of being there completely with myself, and I already had my own beliefs with that. So it didn't even come to mind to need or want to understand anyone else's.
Right. So what do you think happens when you die?
The me that we were talking about earlier, the me that's not this meat suit, that's our consciousness. We go to many different places. You can call it the ethers. You can call it different realms, planes of consciousness. I think we move up into different realms. I think a lot of it's what we call like the subconscious, that space in our dreams. And I think we get to explore that for a while. We get to assimilate our lifetime on a more spiritual level and then decide when it's time to go to the next.
Did you have any reservations before you went?
No.
I'm gonna do it someday, but I have so many reservations, and I don't even have that many dark shadows. I don't have that much. To be honest, I probably don't really have any dark shit going on, but that actually has really happened to me. But I've watched so many David Lynch movies that I feel like there might be
you should just embrace them then.
Well, yeah, but I feel like there might be like, I might be down there, and I always, whenever I think about ayahuasca retreats and tripping your fucking balls off down in South America and that sort of thing, I always think of Daniel Pinchbeck's book, Breaking Open the Head, when he had this like dark thing inside of him that he didn't know why he was like unhappy, and there was just something fucking on his back, and he went down there and took the ayahuasca, and his grandma came out of a tree, like fucking old grandma crawled out of a tree and said, "It's okay, Daniel." And I guess he had this like big monkey on his back about his grandma raised him kind of, and he wasn't there when she died. He was like out on like some like tour or something and couldn't make it back, so he didn't get to see her die, so he felt guilty about that, so he brought it around with him. So when he did the ayahuasca, it came out that that's what was bothering him, and he said he felt like a fucking new person after he got it out.
That shouldn't be reservation then, because like he clarified it for him.
Right. I'm just saying I think it brings out dark stuff, and I think that for me personally, like I don't really have any dark stuff, but I watch a lot of dark shit. So I think that something in my mind might, confuse it, and like some David Lynchian.
Yeah, but you're putting context to it though. So like if it is dark, it's because you're defining it as such.
Yeah, maybe I am dark. I don't know.
I'm not saying like you're dark, but like he could have looked at like his grandma coming out of the woodwork as evil.
Yeah,
but
maybe.
If that's what you like, okay, I'm seeing like a dark shadow entity. Like, what is this sort of thing? Just try to understand it rather than just thinking it's evil and dark and trying to do you some sort of harm. Like maybe about that.
Yeah. Do you think that maybe, like piggybacking off what he said, do you think that maybe when you go down and take the ayahuasca and do the ceremony, do you think some of it subconsciously you get what you want out of it? Like if Barry went down and took it and he wanted, the crew of Doom Patrol to actually like come out of the woods and like dance with him and like have a party with him, do you think that would happen?
That's hard to say. Of course you want to be very intentional with it. And everyone's experiences are so wildly different that personally I would say I doubt you're going to manifest that exact experience, but I think you're going to manifest an experience that's going to shed maybe some of your thoughts on what's actually going on and give you the real deal on what's actually happening in your mind.
That's my approach to dreams. Because we're all convinced that this is all tangibly real, but we only spend 66% of our lives here. But we completely disregard dreaming, even though we spend 1/3 of our life in dreaming. Like give or take of actually how much like we're sleeping, but how much is actually dreaming. Yeah, it still makes up a large chunk of your life, but we're convinced that it's not real. And so that's kind of how I take it. You were mentioning earlier about people coming into your dreams. When like you were talking about somebody, that passed from suicide. I had a friend that passed from suicide in 2010, and I didn't talk about it for a long time. When he was going into my dreams, it was like once a week I'd have a dream about him, and then I started for 3 years. And so I started talking about him to people, and then the frequency shortened up, and now it's at a point where it's at least maybe once a quarter or so they'll still enter my dream. It always takes shape in 3 different ways. One, we're kids and he doesn't know he's about to kill himself, like he's going to in the future. 2 is that it's today and he's alive, and I'm trying to figure out how. Like, how is he alive? And the 3rd one is he's dead but trying to come back somehow to give some sort of advice. And it's always like one of those 3 aspects. Like one of them that like really stuck with me was I wake up and I open this door and it's this bright room that looks like a VFW hall, which is like folding benches everywhere, and you're just sitting there. And he's sitting at one of the tables, and I sit down with them, and I was like, "What is this? Who are all these people?" And he goes, "I have no idea."
Hi, Mom.
And he goes, I have no idea how or who these people are. And he goes, "This is what you have to look forward to. It's just this. Just sitting in a banquet hall with people you have no idea." I'm like, oh, okay. And I think in his mind is like, because you said it's all some sort of aspect of me to him. And like another one is we're kids, like I'm saying, and we're like in a schoolroom, and I want to tell him like, "Hey, don't do this at all." But I don't have like, the timing never seems right to like actually go up to him like, "Hey, in the future, this is what you do. You shouldn't do it," that type of thing. So what is the purpose, like you said, of like people entering your dreams? Like, what is the purpose of that? To show you something about yourself?
Yeah. So that line between our own mind using someone else as a symbol of something within ourselves and a visitation dream, it's a really hazy line. That's a very personal thing to decide. Kind of a typical thing is when someone comes into your dream and there's like it's all like mind to mind telepathy communication within the dream. That's a good way to understand, okay, this is a whole different soul coming in and contacting me right now. A lot of times when people that have passed come in your dreams and you're having conversations and it's just like a normal dream, chances are they're just it's just your mind is using them as a symbol to bring attention to something. And you know, especially with losing someone to suicide, that's a very, very traumatic and different experience than any other type of death. Which for me, it set me up for so much understanding of myself. So that specific person's, I don't have visitation dreams with her anymore, but she comes in all the time. She's in the dreams all the time because it's such a profound part of myself, part of my psyche that I'm exploring, that I'm understanding. She just represents such a deep aspect of myself. Because I would say if she comes into my dream, I'm dreaming about that part of me that just wants to understand, that part of me that gives me that drive to explore myself deeper, explore the outer world more deeply, and understand. So with those dreams, you know, I would get really clear on what he really represents to you, and then that's going to give you insight to what you're actually dreaming about within yourself.
All right. Yeah, it's been like 8 years and I still can't figure it out.
That's weird though, when people like that, when stuff, I've never had anyone that's passed away, I don't think, and popped back into my dreams ever. But I don't think I've known like as many, I don't think I've known that many, no one that important. I mean, like my great grandpa, my great grandma, but no one like of like, I mean, they are significant, but that I was directly in contact with on a day-to-day basis and that sort of thing.
Yeah, the weird thing is like I saw him in 2007 was the last time I saw him, and then in 2010 he committed suicide. I was like, man, if like, because like the last thing he said to me was, like, "Oh yeah, you know, we'll do something this summer. We'll do something this summer." But he's always has like things going on. It's like, oh okay, and I've been pretty passive on just. It's like, oh, I wonder if, you know, not saying that I could like done anything differently or whatever, but just like, oh, I wonder if like what would it be like? It probably would just been a normal day, because I like the idea that, because you always have your childhood friends, right? That there will be a day when this is the last day, but you won't even realize it's the last day that you're doing something together. Yeah,
like the last time I ever hung out with my friends in my old neighborhood before I moved to Kirkwood was like, that was the last day, you know?
Well, that was kind of blatantly obvious, but like not so much because you might come back.
Oh, yeah.
But that's why I don't like saying goodbyes to people. Like if I'm ever at like a wedding or something, I just get up and leave.
I'm the same way. I ghost on people. I ghost.
I call that the Irish goodbye in my family. I'm really good at it.
Yeah, I didn't see you leave our brother and your sister's wedding.
Well, that's a different story.
I don't know if I remember it. No, I do remember it. God damn it. I do remember leaving that wedding, actually. So, kind of bringing it back. So, let's get... I guess that's kind of a good segue to get into kind of the whole... does anyone have to pee, or is that...
I'm okay for right now.
You're good? Okay. So let me just preface. So, Danny, you took a trip down to South America on a, we'll call it a spiritual retreat.
Yeah.
So you went to South America for how long? 2 weeks?
Yeah, I was down there for 2 weeks.
2 weeks. in which he participated in a spiritual ceremony in which they take. Well, it's not all about this. What did you say? There are 8 days on it or 7 days on it?
Yeah, so it's a 7-day retreat. You mentioned that I'm in the core team of Purpose Spark when we first started. So within this retreat, it's 4 days of Purpose Spark. One of the days you sit with the combo frog medicine, which I can explain that in a little bit. And then the last 2 nights is they call it Yahe down there, or the Ayahuasca ceremony. As well as different meditations. There's yoga every morning that you can participate in. 3 vegetarian meals a day. It's a very, very beautiful space.
They don't give meat?
Nah.
Oh, God, that would piss me off. Can you go into the forest and, like, kill your own game?
Good luck, but yeah, I mean, sure. Just watch out for the jaguars and all those big snakes.
Are there really jaguars out there?
I didn't see one, but yeah, it's a jungle.
I'd fuck a jaguar up if I had a gun. But yeah, sorry, back to that.
Yeah, and you know, traditionally there's a very strict diet to follow before you sit in ceremony.
Ceremony, you mean taking the ayahuasca?
Yes.
Some people probably don't know what we're talking about, so I'm just kind of like layman termsing it to them.
Yeah, for sure. I need that because I typically people know me.
Yeah, to us it's just like, oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so the retreat, the first 4 days are the Purpose Spark, which is it's a dynamic group experience where you're exploring your past, your present, and then literally writing your own future. It's a very, very simple thing that gives you very profound results. So my buddy Gregory Bogard, him and with his mentor helped him develop this experience that he calls Purpose Spark. And he, about a year and a half ago, he started implementing that in to the retreats at Aloha Kealakua, which is the name of the retreat center, which was a very beautiful experience for me because I had been building kind of courses similar to what he did, and that was actually my first time sitting in a Purpose Spark. And halfway through, I just looked at him. I was like, dude, this is exactly what I've been trying to create. And then had this whole ego experience of like, how come I'm not standing where he is doing this? And like just all this bullshit chatter. And as soon as that session was done, I told him, you know, that's exactly the thought process I just had. And a month later, he was doing a Purpose Spark retreat in Southern Illinois when I was back home. So I met him there. I helped him kind of put that retreat together, as well as Adam Elfers, who's a beautiful human being. And through that retreat, we kind of like looked at each other and was like, yeah, this is the core team. We're going to really build this up. We have 2 events that we're kind of collaborating with, not a full-on weekend experience, but we're doing kind of mini Purpose Sparks at some events in Indiana and Ohio. But yeah, so the Purpose Spark, it really opens you up. It connects all of the people in the retreat together. You know, a lot of times people share things that they thought they were going to take to their grave. So it just moves a lot of energy. It moves a lot of emotions, and it brings you new perspectives. And then I think day 3 or 4, you sit with the combo, which is it's actually a venom from a frog that lives in the northern Amazon.
What's that like? Like the experience on that?
Is that 5-MeO?
No. It's this specific frog medicine is not a psychedelic. It's a physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual purge. So how it's applied is they take this little twig or a pin and they burn it, and then you get anywhere from 4 to 8 dots where they literally burn the first layer of your skin off, and then apply the medicine directly to the wound, to the lymph system. And within seconds, you're feeling it. A lot of people say in the first minute they literally think they're gonna die. It's an incredible physical purge.
Has anyone died on it? Or doing it?
There has been people that have passed away, and
from the frog.
Yeah, hasn't been many, and not with the people that work that I know that work with it. And typically in the Western world, anyone who's passed away from it are people that weren't honest about their medical history.
Oh, like they had an underlying thing.
Like condition or something.
Yeah. So yeah, before you do that, there's an interview, where you gotta literally give your whole medical history, and if there's something there that could be dangerous, you don't do that stuff. So with any of these medicines, it's very, very important to be just 100% honest with whoever it is holding that space for you that's carrying the medicine. But yeah, so you throw up a lot. You fast for 12 hours beforehand, and then you drink 3 liters of water so you have something to vomit up. And like the science behind that is like the different biles that you hold in your like your stomach and gallbladder hold very concentrated the toxins in your body are very concentrated there. So you vomit all of that up and your body gets to recreate completely fresh stuff. There's been studies of multiple uses of this, reversing the effects of HIV, even curing different heart conditions and things like that. And again, I'm not an expert on it. I don't know the sciences behind it, but you can find a lot online. And actually that medicine was way more profound and impactful to me than the ayahuasca.
The poison dart frog. It's not a poison dart.
It's not poison dart frog. Kambo, Kambo.
Okay. Oh,
yeah.
So what were like what was like the feeling? Was it similar like a marijuana high? Was it similar like a mushroom high, DMT high, salvia?
None of the above. It's as soon as I started feeling it moving through me, literally my thoughts were like, Danny, you're a fucking idiot. Why would you do anything like this? And like went into this like deep fear and like.
Isn't that how it always begins with anything though?
Anything prolific in life.
Yeah, like anything that you
even
do.
Even a shit, even a poop.
It's like I'm gonna move.
Dude, when I have diarrhea, yeah.
What did I just do?
Did you have to shit when you took it?
I did poop. Yep.
Was it a good one?
It was an interesting one.
Like, there's like a poop and you're just kind of like, meh. And then there's a poop and you're like, yeah.
I think it was even like a little bit beyond the, and shit. Even more into like I don't know if I should celebrate that.
I want to have a shit like that.
Yeah. That medicine was, again, it was like 5 days after my dad died. So I basically went through the physical stuff with it. I vomited, was like, what the fuck am I doing at first? And then I just completely surrendered to it. I'm like, Danny, you did this. There's a reason to it. You might not understand right now, but just completely surrendered to it. And so the physical part for me was pretty easy. And then I just like for 20 minutes, I just ugly cried, just like purged myself emotionally and like completely.
It felt good, though.
It did. And then once I was done with that emotional purge, like I was just sitting in complete bliss. Like people that walked past me that weren't in that round of medicine later told me like, yeah, dude, you just look like the Buddha sitting there, just like glowing and radiant. And
how long did it last? That feeling? The drug, the drug or the medicine feeling, not the like blissful state.
So the purge takes anywhere from a half hour to 35 minutes or to 45 minutes. It could take as short as 20 as well. So it's pretty quick experience, but the effects of it could last a long time. Like within that, I purged lots of kind of self-doubt within me, and I could feel the effects of that purge still to today. And that I did that in April. It's just like pretty much any of these self-doubts that I was holding that were holding me back from things. Like I just basically left them in the puke bucket and just walk around with a newfound confidence and belief in myself.
The puke bucket. That's quite fitting, though. I mean, purging it out. So this was what day on your journey? On your 2 week journey?
It was day 4 of the retreat, 4 or 5. Time is weird, and I don't remember it very well.
It was at some point there.
Yeah.
So did you have like a recovery period after the poison dart frog into the ayahuasca?
Yeah, 2 days.
Combo,
2 days.
not poison. I'm just being silly. But yes, it's the combo frog. 2 days.
Yeah.
So is it kind of like a normal psychedelic trip, like mushrooms or LSD, where if you rip too much serotonin out of your brain, the next experience won't be as big because there's not enough serotonin or dopamine or whatever? Or was it kind of like the precursor to the ayahuasca?
Well, again, the combo is not a psychedelic. It's not psychoactive. It's a purge. It's more of a physical and mental.
So you're getting the
medicine.
feelings from the euphoria of the purge, not of the thing actually being put onto your arm.
So
Yes.
kind of like something like Kundalini yoga or like breathing, like that sort of like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because not everyone who did it that weekend felt the bliss that I did.
Yeah.
It just I took it really deep within myself, and I let a lot of things come out of me. I didn't
Yeah.
resist it at all.
How'd you deal with the vanity aspect? Because like I get like, okay, people are gonna see me throw up or you know take a shit basically. There's always that thing like, okay, somebody's got to see me do this, but then like at what point you're just like, okay, whatever. Or did you actually have like because you said a bucket, so I just imagine like in a room where that one bucket is yours to do every sort of purging into it, or did you actually have like a room where you can go in, be isolated to keep the vanity?
So there's 4 other people in the group that did it with me at the same time, and we're outside on the mountaintop in the jungle, and yeah, of course, it's like you hear stories before you do it, and you're like, this is weird. I'm gonna puke and poop and do all this stuff with all the homies now, and I didn't think a whole lot about it. It was pretty easy for me to be like, whatever, man, it's part of the experience. But I'm sure other people kind of went into it like, do I really have to do this? And when I tell friends about it, that's typically the first thing that they come up that people would say is like, I hate puking. I would never do that. And it's like,
Dude, I love puking.
I hate
When
it.
you're hungover as fuck and you have that like nasty ass like bile that you can just feel, like you lay on your side and you're like, oh, I feel so good. But then you turn over and it just like eats you and you're like, dude, fuck it, I'm throwing up. And as soon as you throw up, you order some fucking pizza, some Chinese food, drink a beer, like you were good to go.
I haven't had that feeling in quite some time.
Barry does not drink an alcoholic beverage in 3
Yeah, 3 years actually.
Wow.
Yeah, 3 years
Yeah.
today actually.
Yeah, his own choice.
oh,
Yeah.
congratulations.
No like preconceived or no like
Like explanation as to why.
No,
just,
yeah, he didn't like kill someone in a car accident or anything like that. It's
Well, that's
just-
good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Glad
just
you didn't do that.
but I know like that the feeling of just like laying there and wanting to puke. Just like I don't want to puke. I hate puking.
I love
it. It makes
puking.
me so
I
angry.
love it. It feels so good.
My eyes will water. I'll salivate like crazy.
Yeah. I love the sound of my voice after I give a good hawking.
I just want to brush my teeth instantly because I feel like it's just rotting away. That was one question I was like, can you just bring your toothbrush up there? Because that's what I would be freaking out about. Give me a bottle of water and a tooth like brush and some paste, and I'll just take care of my breath.
Yeah, it wasn't very long after my experience was done that I brushed my teeth.
Yeah.
That's,
Oh,
that's
yeah,
for
bro.
certain.
TJ just said Maggie is on the ayahuasca now. I don't know what that means. But she's doing it right now.
If she is, she better call me.
I think my brother's
So-
full of shit.
As you're flying back and the experience is over, what were your like reflections on it?
Flying back was difficult. I was coming home to
A
my dad's
wedding.
memorial. I got home the 14th of April, and we had his memorial the 15th. So it was like, in a sense, it was.
So you didn't really have a time to actually truly process it beyond this is what I'm going back into.
It's like more so. I'm really grateful that I had the experience of being there when it happened. But yeah, it was really prepping me for the reality I was coming home to. It gave me a lot of strength, a lot of courage, and a lot of confidence to come back to everything being different.
What was the? Could you give kind of like a detailed description of kind of how many days did you take the ayahuasca?
So the retreat offered.
I feel like we're like interrogating him.
That's exactly what we're doing. Because we're curious. That's all.
Yeah.
You see, like he's got under like a lamp and everything.
Yeah.
Too.
It's getting hot in here.
Give him like a nice cold beverage,
Yeah.
like to make it like, oh, we know we're friendly.
This is the newest.
Yeah,
this
but
is
here
the
we go.
Yeah.
This is the new Making a Murderer series.
And keep in mind that you're on camera too. So
But yeah, so how many days did you do the ayahuasca for?
So in the retreats, the last 2 nights are always yahe ceremonies or ayahuasca ceremonies. I did the first night, and I actually opted out the second night.
Whoa. Because of intensity, or just you didn't need it?
I didn't feel I needed it. You know, with my circumstances, you know, there's a lot going on inside of me. I had a really, really profound experience the first night. Moved through a lot of things, understood a lot of things, accepted a lot of things, and you know, it was kind of this conflict the next day, like, yeah, of course I'm gonna drink it again, and like I need to, and that's what my mind's telling me, and then my heart's like, Danny, just relax, you don't need it right now.
Right.
But so ultimately I went with the heart, and I decided to sit out of the ceremony that night.
What could you give, like, kind of a detailed containing, or like a detailed account containing imagery, if you could paint an image with words of the experience of the ayahuasca? How long did it last?
All night, basically.
Like a mushroom trip's a good solid 4 hours, 3 Ps and you're out.
I couldn't tell you the exact hours. Maybe 9 or 10 at night is when we all got together and drank, and we were all still together when the sun came up. So all night. My experience lasted a good few hours. After the sun came up, I was still really in it pretty deep. I think most people were already out of it, so I kind of like disappeared and did my own thing. Cause
you get that weird vibe where like you're still wanting to talk about gibberish, and they're all kind of wanting to talk about.
Well, no, I just didn't want to talk at all. And most of the ceremony is in silence. You're just with yourself. You're going in, you're going deep, and every couple of hours, you'll all come together and sing some songs. And
are you like spread out?
So we're kind of at the flat part of the retreat center, and there's a fire pit in the middle, and everyone kind of made their own bed with a yoga mat, and it can make you really, really sleepy. I took a few naps through it.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Which those, I wouldn't call them naps, but it's the closest thing to call them.
So is it kind of like an auditory and visual hallucinatory kind of deal, or is it more like body high?
I would say it's all of the above.
So like DMT, when you do DMT, you're gone for 5 to 15 minutes. And I mean, you entered the elf world where everything is fractals, geometric spaces, yellow, silver, green, infinitely folding, and the elves come and this shit. Whereas mushrooms kind of takes your current state of awareness and your current state of vision and shakes it to a vibration where it starts to move at like a nice, 40 BPM wavelength, and it can speed up with intensity. The more you take, the more concentrated it is. Marijuana is obviously like a body high and everything's funny, but like what's the state of the ayahuasca?
This is the trickiest part about having this conversation, is that question. It's kind of all of the above and none of the above at the same time. You know, you had that. Physically, I think the closest thing I could compare it to is like the physical sensation of mushrooms. With the smoking DMT and the blasting off, you're in and out of that place,
right?
And at the same time, you're aware of the veil that keeps that space out of your consciousness when you're sober and walking around in the day, and you're aware of the conscious physical realm all simultaneously at the same time. And it's kind of up to you to kind of come in and out of it. I had some really intense visual experiences. I was actually walking to the bathroom, and I just stop and stand in the pathway, because the movie Iron Man, where Tony Stark has this computer thing where he's just like moving stuff around.
That's Barry's department.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Just so that projection screen that he has, and he's moving stuff with his hands, and it's not really there, but it's there. I had that experience. That's the only thing I could compare it to explain that visual. But like everything on this projection was like my thought forms and my beliefs, and I got to rearrange them and like start deleting things like again, the self-doubt was such a theme for this experience to me, and it was like, oh, self-doubt.
What does self-doubt take shape of?
Ask that question differently.
So the context of what the self-doubt is that you mentally projected, what did it look like symbolically to you? What color was it? What shape did it take? How big was it? Because right now, what I'm picturing, because you said Tony Stark, is you, right? And then your mind. And then, because you know how Tony Stark just expands stuff and they can just like go in?
Yeah.
It's just like everything is blue and crisp. That is you. And then there's like this little red, like rock thing. That's how I like envision what you're talking about. So I was like, oh, I wonder what like the actual visualization for you was.
I'm going back in there, kind of recreating it right now. So basically, it was like my whole point of view turned into this giant geometric thing. I call it a computer screen because that's the only thing I can even compare it to. And
like a 3D model of it.
Yeah, it was just this giant projection, like this. Yeah, it's just a giant projection, and literally, like word for word, like beliefs and traumas and thought forms that are pretty apparent in my life all the time. Were just like in a list right in front.
So it was like words.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you can just like press backspace on the self-doubt and just
just like literally hit the delete button and it's like bye. And then like moving things that I was like, man, I thought this was like my priority in my life. I'm moving that to the top and moving this down, and just basically like rearranging the PDF file of my own brain. Yeah, it was pretty far out.
Could you add anything external that wasn't in there? Because I know you said you could delete stuff that's already in there and rearrange things that's already in there. Was there something just kind of like floating by, like I'm going to take that and actually implement it into this list?
No, I'm not saying that I couldn't do that, but that.
No, I was asking you if you did or not.
Oh, I didn't.
Okay.
No. It was very much looking at what I was working with right here, right now, in this consciousness that is Danny.
So what font was it? What was it?
Was it an Arial? Was it a generic
Helvetica? What font size?
See, and that's the hard thing to explain, is because it's like I like perceived it as letters, but it was all just these profound geometric shapes that I was just maybe reading in that state, in that mind.
Maybe because like that's all, because our minds have to draw conclusions and have to make, what's it called? Connections.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because like if you look at
see a shape and you're like, oh, that looks like an F.
Yeah,
that's what it's not really an F.
You can look at any other language, right?
Yeah.
Like Spanish, their alphabet looks extremely similar. First glance is like, okay, I can read this, and then you take another glance, like, I can't read this at all.
Mm-hmm.
And then things that are like, Korean clearly aren't the language that is anything like English language. So when you do look at like Korean, you don't understand it. But even though this wasn't English in your head, it was a language you could understand.
Yes. And basically what I just told you was my interpretation of the experience.
Well, that's kind of like what we were talking about earlier, is like I can give you the interpretation of me drinking this tea.
Mm-hmm.
I can't actually give you the sensation of it.
Yes. And the ayahuasca world, it's a really tough one to bring out in words.
I think it's my cat.
Kitty cat. I also felt very connected to the insects of the jungle, like I was communicating with them. Lots of the closed-eyed visuals when I would just go into like a deep meditation. I was communicating with these insect-type entities. It was.
Was it like through your words, or just through body language, or just through understanding of each other's presence?
It was as if I went into a different realm of consciousness, and it was so like you can think of the inner realms of consciousness like we share that space. So it's like I have my own consciousness, but we also exist in the same one. So especially like the astral realm. So I kind of went there and met these different entities there, and so it's all mind to mind communication.
Who do you think these entities were? Sorry.
No, it's okay.
I have no friggin' idea.
Do you think that they're actually real, or do you think they're more parts of your subconscious?
That's a tough one, and I recently decided to stop asking myself that question because the experience was so real for me. Do I really need to know if it's a projection of me or if it's this actual outside entity? Yeah, because I was starting to obsess with it, and I'm obviously never going to know that for certain, whether or not it's this real outside entity or if it's just this manifestation of my own thoughts and experiences. So
you have the ability to shut off your we'll call it the proverbial loop sequence. You have the ability to shut that off, because when Barry and I start talking about reality and nonsensical things that people shouldn't have conversations, it's literally just
That's my favorite.
it's a fucking loop. It's literally like, yeah, but this, yeah, but that, yeah, but this, which is fine because it's actually you gain little blippets out of that loop.
Mhm.
But so you would say, God, so you say you would say you have the ability to shut that off, the proverbial loop of when I'm on ayahuasca, I see these entities and they talk to me, but I don't care who they are.
Or like I know that I'm just on something that's making my head go crazy. Rather than like, okay, this has context to it, rather than just like, see, that's the hardest part for certain people is like, you're just on drugs.
Yeah.
That's how you explain, like, okay, I drank alcohol and I had one solid moment of a thought and it was really sad. It was because I was drinking.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't tie it to like that was actually them, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like certain things, like I was saying, like with alcohol, people, they don't really look at it as such, but it is a form of altering your consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than like somebody say, like, okay, what you just took, it just made you basically on drugs the entire time, rather than like what we were saying earlier about here's the context, meaning, the motifs, the symbolism of the stuff of your own inner workings. Like, okay, what Andrew is saying is, how did you get past that? It's like, oh, I'm just like, what you're saying is like, why did you do this? Why did you do this? You're like, oh, okay, just go with it, or just like think, like, okay, like when you're drunk and you're like, oh man, I'm really drunk right now, and you just kind of just shut it off.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what you're talking about, right, Andrew? It's just like going in this circle of,
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking
okay, I'm
about.
putting meaning to this meaning, that I'm giving meaning to this meaning, of giving meaning to this meaning, and just keep going into like this loop.
Right. So like when you were on the ayahuasca retreat and you saw this geometric thing or this entity, you didn't try to dissect it and deduct it into figuring out what is this thing? Where is it from? Why is it here talking to me? Why am I seeing it?
Yeah, what's coming to my mind is just 4.5 years of a commitment to meditation every day.
Yeah. So you were kind of like prepped to see these sorts of things and be aware of these experiences.
Yeah. And I think in the past I would have obsessed about it and like, oh, I got to figure this out. I got to know everything, because that's typically how I do things. I get really mental and intellectual about it. And I think just with years of commitment to different spiritual disciplines and meditation and concentration, I've developed the ability to surrender and just be like, I don't really need to think the hell out of this experience and just enjoy it and be present with it and pay attention to how it affects me.
I think that's a good mentality to have. Not think about things too much, just take them. A candid question though, do you think that there's the possibility that the entities you saw could be extraterrestrials?
In so many words, yes.
And I am talking about little green men.
See, because if you look, the word is extraterrestrial, that means it's just terrestrial that has extra.
Right.
So they technically would be, right?
No, I'm talking about little fucking green men.
Like actual,
aliens, provers.
Centaurians.
Yeah, Alpha Centaurians or reptilians, whatever. My brother TJ asked, he said, does Danny ever have any dreams from that experience now? So I guess what he's trying to say is, do you ever dream about that experience now, and how do they like interplay together?
I haven't had dreams specifically with that experience. I've had a lot more dreams with outside entities. Like, I don't know if you want to call them demons, but let's call them demons, where I've had a few dreams where I'm literally battling demons.
What do you think these demons are?
Again, it's kind of that question I've just surrendered to, and the short answer would be it's a manifestation of my own darkness, my own demons, my own shadow work that I've been doing. But as of lately, there's a part of me that's starting to believe, like, okay, maybe these things really are outside of myself, and they are real, and they do exist. But I really have I don't really take a stance on it right now.
Yeah. You're still just gathering the information. You have yet to make a conclusion.
Yeah.
So kind of going back to the South America experience, for someone who doesn't know about like ayahuasca, or the whole psychedelic journey, let's say this person's, only, smoked marijuana or whatever. Is it something that a person like that should be scared of? Let's say there's someone that's, there's something wrong with them. They can't quite figure it out. They're not necessarily depressed, but they just have like this thing, And do you think that if their friend was like, well, I'm going to do this ayahuasca retreat, they don't know anything about it, do you think it's a good idea for someone like that to go do something like that? Or do you think that you have to like kind of have been dabbling a little bit in the whole environment, I guess, of the esoteric kind of psychedelic meditation, spiritual journey thing?
Yeah, I don't think you need that. Me personally, I'm glad I dove into that stuff for 5 years, because I've been wanting to drink the ayahuasca for years and years and years, even before I really started getting into the spiritual path. From my experience, I'm personally really grateful that I did end up waiting after 4 years of spiritual disciplines and meditation practice, because I was able to really, I had a good understanding of my own consciousness and my own mind, that I was able to take it extremely deep within myself.
Right.
I wasn't caught off guard with anything, and I was pretty have a pretty good grasp on my own concentration and focus and directing my mind and consciousness. So from my experience, yes, it was beautiful. I got to use it. I would say to like its full potential. And I'm not saying that people that don't have that practice can't use it to its full potential, but yeah, if you're feeling called to it, do it. If you're feeling called to it, maybe don't force it, but keep putting it out into the ethers that you want to, and the opportunity is going to arise, and you can either take it or leave it. Also, release any expectations you have of it, because it's going to give everyone such a different experience. It's not this, oh my God, I'm so depressed, I'm going to go drink ayahuasca and my life is going to be amazing. It's not an end-all be-all. It's going to give you a very unique perspective of yourself to allow you to give yourself the opportunity to do things differently.
Differently in a good way or differently in a bad way? So let's say like you're the 9-to-5 guy. You work in a bank. You're 9 to 5. You're not married. You're 35. You're not married. You go out and party every week with your friends. You take shots. You do a bunch of cocaine. You need something more. And your other friend from high school is like, hey, I'm going to do this ayahuasca retreat. But you don't necessarily want anything more, but you're just like, fuck it, I'll go do drugs. Do you think that that's like do you think that's a good mentality, or is it indifferent?
I don't think that's the ideal mentality. You want to be very intentional. And that's, do your research on the places that are hosting. Do your research on the places that you might want to go to, because there's places in Peru where it's just you come, you drink medicine for like 3-4 nights in a row, and like you do your thing. I would recommend places that have other structures involved with it.
Right.
It's kind of like the grounded work, like with Aloha Keakua, that when the purpose spark is just perfect for it, because you start opening things up in yourself. You start asking yourself questions. You start sharing your story with others, which is going to give you different perspectives and open you up a little bit. So it gives you that opportunity to have other people help you get clear on what your intention is, what you really want from it, and how you're going to apply it in your life when you go back to that 9 to 5.
Yeah. Do you think that for someone who's like struggling to find their true purpose, not necessarily, I don't want to use the word true purpose, but for someone who's like let's say Barry and I, like if Barry and I were like, man, we hate working this job. He wants to be a comic book guy. I want to be a music producer. We need this, like, we can't really figure out what it is, why we can't reach in and grab what we want. Would you be like an advocate of being like, maybe you should go on an ayahuasca retreat? Or is that too heavy of like a diagnosis for a problem?
Yeah, I mean, if you're already asking questions about ayahuasca, I'd say do it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to walk up to somebody, sit down at a bus stop, and this person's like, oh my God, I've been having this shitty life. I'm not going to be like, oh my gosh, go to the Amazon and do ayahuasca. I'd probably recommend something a little closer to home, and it's ayahuasca is such an interesting experience because you're especially doing it in South America and with people that are holding the traditions. It's almost as if you're inviting the spirit of the jungle inside of you.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, I've reached places on mushrooms where I've like felt as though I was communicating with the spirit of the fungus.
Which is earth, I think, is literally just earth.
Yeah, and it's Pachamama. It's whatever perspective you take from it. But with my experience with the ayahuasca, it's very, very, it's almost undeniable that you're working with the spirit that people call the mother vine or mother ayahuasca or the spirit of the jungle, whatever it is. It's very much felt that presence inside of me the whole time.
My dad just asked, do you feel, not Dave, but my dad, does he feel he brought them to him or back with him? These demons that I think he's prefacing to the demon, or he's referring to the demons that you talked about in your dreams, that you've had after the spiritual retreat. And I guess what he's saying is
yeah, I think I get what he's asking. He's like, did I pick him up with the drugs or did I have him with me the whole time?
Right, exactly. And the drugs just made you realize they were there.
Yeah, I would say absolutely they were there from the get-go. You know, we all have our darknesses. We all have our demons. And it just, you can bring them out when you're ready to. When you can literally turn around and look at them and say, I see you. And whether that's just a trauma from the past or something you've been avoided. And they can manifest in any way. You don't have to see this dark entity shadow person to like, oh my gosh. You know, demons could be simple as something that of this lie that you've been telling for 10 years, you know, that can manifest in your dream as
that's heavy.
It's anything. It's really just a clearing out of your consciousness, of your mind.
Getting the skeletons out of your closet.
Yeah. And it just so happens in my mind and that they manifested as this demon entity in my dream.
Do you think it's because you're saying you kind of grew up in Catholicism, right?
Half-assed.
Okay. Because for me growing up, I don't remember or actually there ever being a time where I believed. Like I've always just been atheist on the approach is. So like, do you think that was influenced by it because it was your youth? And then, so even though it's half-assed, you're still learning about it.
Yeah.
Is that part of the reason as to why? Because maybe somebody who doesn't have that sort of religious faith wouldn't identify them as demons. Maybe just something completely different. Do you think that's part of the reason why they were demons?
It's very, very possible. Again, my evolution with faith and the process has been really interesting because I felt as though I abandoned the church and like hated it for such a long time. And even at an early age, I think, like, one year my mom asked me what I was giving up for Lent. And I was like, you know what, Mom, I'm giving up Christianity. And she kind of like was like, all right, no more public school religion for you. I'm not going to force you into anything, because I was just going to cause trouble anyway.
Yeah.
And I spent a lot of time, like, really almost like proving to myself that it was all bullshit. Like, most, probably from like 15 to 20, really. And then I started having experiences of, you know, just deep perceptions of experiencing energy in a different way, or source, or God, whatever you want to call it. I pretty much gave up trying to define it, and it's like, it's just that thing that I don't know, you know?
Yeah, is that like the reason why you saw Jesus and you had that overwhelming feeling in your heart, or the reason why? I'm assuming when you say demons, they take the traditional view, like visuals of a demon, just like horned creatures.
It's more like dark shadow people, just like a walking shadow.
Is it like is it type of shadows where there is a solid mass of black, and then as they go into the background, it becomes faded, like a shading pencil?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, but I don't know if it's my imagination. I don't know if it's everything I've read, all the influences. It's just how my mind manifested that experience for me, and that's gonna be so unique to everybody.
Well, yeah, because I always think like the same color yellow is not the same color yellow to you or I.
When I was a kid, I would always ponder this like every day of my life. It's like, man, and like recreate these stories in my mind and just think to myself, well, you know, if my parents named me Dominic, everything would be different. Everything. And I would just like create this story of Dominic in my mind. And like, especially in like long car drives with my parents and stuff like that, I'd just be daydreaming these stories of basically how my reality would be completely different by one little change, one little difference.
Yeah, you'd be the dominator.
Mm.
You guys want to take a short pause?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
We're going to take a short break here. We'll be back with our guest, Danny, spiritual traveler through the universe. I'm going to play a upcoming track off of the Break Night CD that is coming out very soon, entitled Weekend Warrior, which Barry actually did the art for. This song is called December Fall, and we're going to take a short couple-minute break, and we will be right back, so please stick around. All right. So that was a new break night song entitled December Fall. What is she looking for?
A cup.
Wine glass? That cupboard. Yep, right there. Any of those. Barry is still. Oh, we left the camera on that whole time. Whoops.
Yeah, we're getting pizza after this, all right?
Yeah. No. The voice thing wasn't on, but the camera was on, so everyone just saw us moving about.
Nice.
Danny Martin said, "Good job, guys. Been wanting to hear about this a while."
What's up, Danny?
Scott Allen wrote, "This is original music written." No, he's just. Danny Martin wrote, "Just thought of a song topic. My demon's name is Doubt." That's cool.
Okay.
TJ said, "Is Barry gonna design some shirts to go along with the album release?" I don't know. We're thinking about it. Maybe.
When is this album released?
We don't know yet. So I just submitted it. Sorry for all the noise. I just submitted it today for mastering. So I submitted it for mastering, and once it's mastered, we're going to submit it to some record labels. So it might be a minute before it comes back.
Awesome.
And hopefully a record label picks it up. Michael Twigo, Danny's brother-in-law, just said, "Y'all are killing it tonight."
Thanks,
dude.
Michael.
I don't know how I feel about the word killing anymore.
Would you rather have murdering it? Slaughtering it? 'Cause
Slaughtering it.
Slaughter does have laughter.
Yeah, well, slaughter also brings along the baggage of killing something. Killing is just, you're killing it. We've deduced the meaning of killing. You know, it's like, oh, y'all are killing it. You know, it's not, oh, y'all are loading a gun and shooting something and then stripping it of its organs and then chopping it up for meat. You know what I mean?
It could be it.
Yeah.
They could, want a certain. Well, if you guys are killing it, I kind of want the prime cut.
Yeah.
Of it.
I would probably take the prime cut too.
Well, I don't think anybody wants like the hoof. The hoof. of the
oh.
goat.
It's gelatin.
Pig
Jello.
hooves, dude. Have you ever had pickled pig hooves?
No, so I'm the one that's gonna. You guys can have the hoof of us killing it. Then I'll pass. I'll get the prime cut.
Barry, would you ever go on an ayahuasca retreat?
I'm not that intrigued into it. Like learning about it, I am. I like people's experiences and things like that because I've had a close childhood friend go, and he came back and he actually recorded the shaman doing like her chanting and everything, and I was like, oh, I'm really fascinated by it, but it's not something that I'm actively interested doing it myself, if that makes sense.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah.
Because I get like certain things for people to do is for them, and it's not like, oh, I'm afraid that's why I don't want to do it. It's just, I don't know. It just doesn't seem like something that would be for me, even though it's probably like, oh yeah, it's for everyone. But I don't know. It's just,
And I don't even think it's for everyone. I think it's for people that feel called to it. You know, if you don't. It's kind of that guy on the bus stop that I was talking about. Like it's
Forrest Gump.
Yeah, it's
Call back to the other podcast.
It really isn't for everybody. But if you're contemplating it and it's coming up in your consciousness and you're asking people about it and like in your heart, like, man, I really need to do that. All right, that's for you.
Let me ask you, do you think that people who do not wish to partake in any sort of consumption of a psychedelic or anything like that, do you think that they can reach the level of understanding or enlightenment, for lack of a better term, of someone that partakes in psychedelics? Like if someone doesn't want to take ayahuasca or mushrooms or LSD, they don't want to take any of that, but they want to gain the enlightenment or that level. Do you think that that's still attainable?
Oh yeah. Man, there's many paths to the same place. A couple weeks ago, I was at a 2-week intensive breathwork training. The modality is called rebirthing, and I had just as significant psychedelic experiences through breath that I have with drinking medicines or eating mushrooms or taking some tabs. Isn't
that I think the science behind that is pumping the oxygen full of pumping the brain full of oxygen in a short amount of time. Just like when you're drunk and you get that euphoric state, you're depleting the brain of oxygen. So in that breathing meditation thing, you're pumping it full, you know. So is that kind of what that's from?
Like Breath of Fire work and stuff?
No, it's a little different than Breath of Fire. Sorry, I've experimented with so many breath modalities. Yeah, Breath of Fire is really, really intense. The rebirthing's a little bit more mellow. It's just you're learning how to connect your breath. The guy who like discovered this style of breathing, Leonard Orr, in the 70s, was like just breathing in a hot tub and ended up taking himself to the memories of coming out of the birth canal and like the traumas of that, and remembered how incredibly painful his first breath was. And so he just started exploring this and realized that he could take other people to those same memories as he accidentally discovered himself, and started really mastering it. And I'm not saying anyone goes and does this modality they're going to remember that all, but you can heal a lot of deep traumas. I did, in my 2-week session, I facilitated 10 sessions and I received 10 sessions. And I swear in those 10 sessions, I moved through so much baggage I was carrying that probably would have taken me 5 years of talk therapy to move through. It's just like, you don't have to go and open up these wounds to heal them. You can just like literally breathe them out of you.
That's the thing I'm more interested in, is that sort of kind of approach to it. Is like the whole breathing exercise, sitting, maybe eyes closed, not movements of the arms, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Like movement, like different mudras and things like that.
Yeah, like with your arms, if you go up, have your thumbs together and then slowly bring them down. Like, and while you're doing simultaneous breath work with it.
Yeah.
Someone, my brother asked, do you think a lot of people do it just for the drug aspect, quote unquote, on drugs?
I don't know. Getting a plane ticket to Peru and
I would say
committing
no.
to something like that is kind of crazy.
Here's my
if
take
you're
on
just looking for the high.
Right. Here's my take on that. People that just want to do it for the drug aspect, they'll go do it in whatever part of Missouri or whatever part of Michigan or Ohio or California where they have these like, do you know what they're called? When like fake people try to give the ayahuasca and shit. They have one. Duncan Trussell talks about one that he took in like Hollywood, and it was like led by some like famous Hollywood guy, and it was supposed to be like ayahuasca, but I don't think it was cooked right, and he like ate it, and then he's like going on this tour, and this guy's supposed to be like showing him all this stuff, and he's just like vomiting the whole time, and it's like awful. I think that from what and I've never done it, I will do it someday. When Danny's giving him, I'll go do him. That's what I told him.
I don't think I'm gonna give him,
but when he's down there at the retreat. But I think that the people that want to do it for drugs will find the quickest, most easiest method to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there's always exceptions to everything, as we say here on the podcast. So there obviously is people that just want to do it for the drug aspect that have the money that will go down there and do it. But I think the people that want it for the right reasons will do it the right way. Like Danny's talking about, spending the time before doing the actual ceremony, not just going down where you can just pay $1,200, roll into a Amazonian camp and just fucking drink ayahuasca and get fucked up all week with a bunch of fakes. But I think that the intention, if your intention is pure, then your attention will take you to the pure place. And then if you just want to do it for drugs, you can just I
always find the approach that if you're doing it that way, or I always find that if you take the approach that way, it's always going to end up in something negative.
Right. And I think that learning from experience, like if I do things for the wrong reasons, I guess I gain more negative connotations from, I get like more negative effects from that experience. So I think that if someone wants to go for drugs and they're like, oh, we're gonna go take ayahuasca and like get all clear-headed, like
bachelor party.
Yeah, it's like the demons and the ethereal spirits and the aliens are gonna fucking be like, look at this dumb motherfucker that just provided this opening, and then that's where Jeffrey Dahmer's come from.
Maybe he's like the guide to it all.
Yeah. There's some fucking Hitler mastermind up there looking for poor, weak souls, looking for enlightenment for the wrong reasons, and those are just like provide vessels for them to bestow their evil in. Someone piggybacking on this, I don't know this, Jess Elaine, does that name sound familiar to you? Might be one of your friends.
I think so. Yeah.
Uh,
I see it.
She said, "Can you
Oh,
guys
yeah.
talk about the Dark Night of the Soul?"
Like Batman?
Ah.
The Batman of the soul?
Light 'em up.
I mean, we could, but I feel like that's just a whole nother discussion in itself.
Could you preface it? What is the Dark Night of the Soul?
Dark Night of the Soul is when you just get to that point where you give up on everything, where it's just like
Pure nihilism?
you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. Like it's your desperation.
Is that depression?
I
Or is
don't
it
know.
worse than depression?
I would say it's worse than oppression. YouTube Ram Dass, Dark Night of the Soul, if that's what you want to get into right now. He speaks of it beautifully, as if like Ram Dass does. But yeah, if I dove into that right now, we'd be talking for another
What about
another hour.
the White Knight of the Soul?
I think that's the next Batman movie.
Yeah, the White Knight. They actually made a comic about that, and it's the Joker. He's the White Knight.
What is it? Like what's kind of the definition of the Dark Night of the Soul?
You know, I'm uncertain.
Because to me, like, is it dark K-N-I or N-I?
Night as in nighttime. Yeah.
Okay, because I'm thinking like the Dark Knight. Like, it's just like this evil beyond Batman.
By the way, to backpedal to what we were talking about earlier with Ram Dass, and I couldn't think about who he studied under. It was Neem Karoli Baba. That was the little Indian dude that Ram Dass gave acid to, like 100 hits of acid, and he didn't feel anything, or he like freaked out for like 1 second and then came back and was like totally normal.
Yeah, I forget the name of the book, but it's like just quite a few short stories of Ram Dass writing short stories about his experiences with him.
Yeah.
And some of those stories are absolutely beautiful, and it does a really good job on teaching you that like literally every person's path is so different and unique to them that there's no way in hell I can actually understand what you need to do, what you're doing, and why you're doing it. I can tell myself a lot of stories and convince myself that I know, but I'll never actually know. And that book does a great, I cannot remember the name of it, but there's lots of really good stories, and especially with that conversation kind of earlier when it's like, you know, should everybody go do drugs? And the answer is no. If you're feeling called for it, yes. And there's a few stories about using LSD on the spiritual path in that book that can give some insights to that question as well.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of the book. So you were talking about. So Katie Burr just said, "Did Danny talk about his Leonard Orr retreat yet? Would love to hear about the post-retreat integration."
Who asked that?
Katie Iber.
Oh, Kate Iber. Hi, Kate.
Is she Kate and Nate? Is she Kate from Kate and Nate, or what is it?
+8?
Johnny Kate plus 8?
Yeah.
No, she's not. Kate's actually, you guys should follow her. She's an awesome astrologer and
Ooh, sweet.
spiritual teacher. And
Shout out to the Leos.
all around badass.
And the Aries. My brother's an Aries. You can't see the one on the other arm.
I'm an Aries.
Oh, nice.
Ram Dass is an Aries.
Oh.
Yeah.
What are you?
Virgo.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Where were we at? Yeah. The Leonard Orr retreat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I briefly spoke of that's the breathwork retreat, or it was a training. It wasn't a retreat. So I went, lived in this house for
Where at?
14 days in Waynesboro, Virginia.
Okay.
Yeah. Kind
What's the premise of all of this breath house?
Man, it was a freaking intense experience. Literally, my teacher Paula, throughout those 14 days, just destroyed me and my ego in such a beautiful way. I thought I had so much figured out, and Paula made me really certain that I have nothing figured out.
By which means, what was the attack?
It was an attack. It was
Well, I mean, like the method, like what were the practices that like you went through on a day-to-day basis?
So Leonard Orr teaches immortality through purifying the self with elements. So I had to bathe every morning and bathe every night for at least 20 minutes. Spend at least half hour with a fire, breathe every day and spend time outside, as well as with being very mindful of what I eat for the earth element. And then the breath work, learning how to facilitate that, understanding the process of that. We also did so many other things. We did a lot of stuff from Byron Katie, which is called The Work, where basically you go through and think about how you've blamed anyone else for anything that's happened in your life, and then reverse that and take the responsibility on yourself. That was some powerful, powerful work. We did some things called family constellations, which I don't know anything about. Couldn't even begin explaining that, but had some really powerful experiences from that. And yeah, it just opened me up so wide.
And this was a non medicine or drug induced weekend or retreat?
No, it was a very sober experience. Very sober experience. Yeah, so the modality is called rebirthing. Leonard Ord's the teacher I got to spend some time with him, and that man's just a profound individual. But yeah, this woman Paula was teaching it. The post integration. Yeah, it took me like days and days and days of journaling to really kind of process everything. I moved through lots of things I was holding on to from past relationships, lots of blame that I was holding, especially with like my parents, and just was able to gently and ferociously move those things out of me and see them in a new perspective that allows me to live a little bit lighter.
Have you ever had any iboga experience?
No, I don't think I want to. It sounds.
Do you smoke that?
I don't know a whole lot about that, but I do. What I do know about that is like, you only do that in extreme situations when like lots of people that have tried everything to get off of drugs. That's kind of like the last line of defense. Which the little I do know about that's like for real taking you through all of your darkness, and like it's some scary shit.
Someone just asked, what is iboga? I'm pretty sure it's the same kind of concept as ayahuasca, but nowadays they're doing this thing like ibogaine, which ibogaine is the I think what you're referring to, but iboga is it's a perennial rainforest shrub and psychedelic, native to Western Central Africa. Iboga stimulates the central nervous system when taken in small doses and induces hallucinations in larger doses in parts of Africa where the plant grows. The bark of the root is chewed for various pharmacological and ritualistic purposes. Ibogaine, the active alkaloid, is also used to treat substance abuse disorders and depression. A small amount of ibogaine along with precursors of ibogaine are found in whatever. So yeah, I guess it's just like a super duper hallucinogenic thing. I've read stories about people smoking it and stuff and like seeing the devil.
Like Lucifer?
Yeah, whatever the person's definition is of the devil. In that book, Breaking Up the Mind, he talks about iboga and smoking iboga ceremonies where shamans will smoke it and induce it, and that's how they get the dark fucking demony kind of deities, I guess, or spiritual entities. That's the fucking devil right there. You talked about earlier, what about human design thoughts?
That's something I don't know enough about to really get into. I have a friend who's really into it. I've looked up my chart. It's a little confusing for me coming from like the paradigm of things that I think I already know, with like energy systems and the chakra systems and all that. Yeah, I don't feel comfortable even going into that right now.
So you said earlier about purpose spark. What is purpose spark? I've heard you mention it before, and John Paul came over one time and we jammed, and that's where you met John Paul.
Yeah.
Was it Purpose Spark? What is that?
So Purpose Spark is a dynamic group experience where a group of people come together. It can. We've been diving into hosting weekend-long retreats with it. It can be offered as like a 90-minute workshop. We're thinking about doing like this house tour with it, having people inviting us into their homes and sitting with like 10 people maybe. But ultimately what it is, it's a group experience where you have the opportunity to be asked questions that allow you to just give yourself an honest look at what has happened in your life, and then you have the opportunity to share that in a group of 3, kind of this really intimate experience. And you get the opportunity to kind of move through all questions as simple as like spend 2 minutes talking about somebody significant in your life. And so you have all of these prompts that can just stimulate so much within you. Very rarely have I been at a Purpose Park where everyone wasn't in tears. Nobody was not in tears.
So you only need 3 people to do a Purpose Spark?
Yeah, and a facilitator, so 4.
Are you a facilitator?
Not quite yet. Maybe someday.
What? So you say you bring upon a question and then you discuss it or something like that?
Yeah. So it's a series of prompts and questions. You begin focusing on your past, and then you come into your present state, and then you have the opportunity to really kind of write and create your future, go through different goal-setting things, come up with a plan of action to kind of take the reins on your life. And ultimately, the whole process allows people to, like, come fully into their bodies and their present self and, like, embody their life in a more genuine way.
So what constitutes being like a facilitator of it?
So like I said, my brother Gregory Bogard, I think about 4 years ago, him and his mentor was actually an old high school teacher of his, that was developing this to help high school students have a better idea of, you know, what made them happy, what they really wanted to do with themselves. And then so we worked with Scott Smith is his name, that guy, for a while, and they were both facilitating these things. And then Scott Smith like kicked him out and was like, dude, you just need to go do this, put your own spin on it and like do it. And he's from Dayton, Ohio, and he started doing 4-week classes where they'd meet once a week for 4 weeks, and ended up taking like 150 people in his hometown through it. And then met Ryan Wilson of the Retreat Center at Aloha Keakua, and Ryan invited him to start incorporating that into the retreats in South America. And
this is what you're trying to get into?
So I'm not facilitating them, but I'm kind of a part of the core group, the business crew that are really working on putting full-on retreats together here in the States.
So what's like kind of like a prompt, I guess, that they talk about, like an example, or can you not give that?
Yeah, I don't think I want to get into that. But really the ultimate question is that we want to get into everybody's mindset to really start asking is simply what else is possible.
So that's kind of like the general thesis of it?
I wouldn't say that either. And like I said, this project it's not my project, so I don't want to
I get what you're
kind
saying.
of go into a lot more details. All I can say is we're really putting in a ton of effort to really blow this thing up, to start moving it at least 3 or 4 weekend-long retreats around the Midwest next spring and summer, kind of on maybe even do a house tour where if you want to get 5 or 10 people together, invite them into your home and do like an all-day workshop type thing, we'll do that as well. We're just kind of in the brainstorming area of really giving this beautiful thing to as many people as we can.
How does someone find out about more information about the Purpose Spark?
Yeah, just go and like Purpose Spark on Facebook. We'll have all the updates there. It gives you a brief description of what the process is. Feel free to send me a private message. Yeah.
I'm including a link right now just in case. Was that the right one?
I didn't get to see it. No, I think that's an old event.
Oh shit. Remove. Delete. I love the delete button. Could you imagine a world without delete?
It'd be a
still
messy
exists,
world.
What do you mean?
Well, it still exists in there because it'll just be
Yes, that's the one.
a sequence of coding that says you deleted it.
Well, it never on Facebook and on the internet. Anything you delete is never really deleted. It's
Yeah,
just
that's what
it's
I'm
just
saying.
cached.
Yeah.
So you're moving to South America soon.
Yeah, on October 18th, I'm committing to 6 months down there, and we'll see where that goes, if it becomes more permanent or not.
And what is the purpose of this move?
For me personally, I really desire the experience of kind of getting out of the Matrix for a while.
Barry loves the Matrix.
The movie, not being inside of.
But isn't this the
Hmm.
Matrix?
In some degree, it's a matrix.
Oh, let's ask his opinion.
About simulated reality? Or
Yes. Yeah.
do you think this is a simulation? This reality, is it a simulated reality?
And that's another one I kind of gave up on answering. I've been finding lately that I'm way better at asking questions than I am with coming up with answers. And once I come up with the answers, things become boring. If I would have to choose one side or the other, I don't think this is a simulated reality. Is it possible? I think it could be very possible. And maybe that's just the part of me that doesn't want it to be a simulated reality coming out.
Yeah. There's no way to refute it at all.
So this fucker just posted on I'm on this group called Podcaster Support Group on Facebook, and this dude Dan Mack just put beard and man bun convention question. So I trolled him and I said, yeah, we basically just stereotype a bunch of people and things they do to get off on.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, stereotype.
I
All
thought
right.
that was a support group.
Exactly. That's the way of the world these days, dude. With like podcasting and all this kind of stuff, people, we talked about it a while ago, but people will be like, you'll get messages or there'll be like conversations, someone being like, is there too many podcasts? How do you know when someone's ready to podcast? It's like, dude, what are you talking? Okay, so you're Joe Rogan. That's what you're telling me. You're Joe Rogan. You have the power to podcast. You're the god of podcasting. Like, who gives a fuck? That's like saying there's too many guitarists out there. There's too many guitars out here. People need to stop playing guitars. Are you going to play music? Nope,
Well,
can't play music
I
anymore.
think to some degree it's their own personal thing. So it's an easy attack.
Yeah,
Without
because
questioning, why we grow our hair out or why we grow beards.
yeah.
It's just easy to, stereotype. Like you're
Stereotype,
saying.
yeah, exactly. Because it's so much easier, and you'll probably have a lot of insight on this, but it's so easy to throw your negativity at someone and judge someone and stereotype someone. And like, it's like this day and age where people, they get high off of putting people down, right? And I mean, I'm guilty of it. I try not to do it as much. As you know, I'm an admitted bachelorette watcher, viewer. I
didn't know that.
Yeah, I openly watch The Bachelor or The
That's
Bachelorette.
so cute.
So yeah, and I watch that and I see these people and sometimes I'll hate on them and I'll just be like, why am I doing that? I'm projecting like this negativity, and is it just like is it a discomfort with myself? But then I think, oh no, these people are just terrible human beings. It's fine, it's okay. But when you go somewhere and you just like this dude, honing in on, I shared this on the podcaster support group just so people could see it, because that's what it's for. I would hope to get some constructive feedback, just not stereotyping, trolling. But like people like that, they just go around and they troll, and I fall victim to it too, especially late night when I'm drinking. If someone posts something stupid about music, I'll get on there and troll, and obviously delete it the next morning.
He could just not be able to grow a beard and or his own hair, and so
he's bald and he doesn't have a beard. That's his problem.
He's really, really patchy.
Yeah.
He can't grow in.
But it's just like, but I know that mentality of just like, is this the beard and man bun convention? Oh, I looked at your podcast. I see you only have this many views. It's like, oh, okay. Yeah, we're fine with our 10 listeners every episode. That's cool with me. What are you trying to do? You know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, when are you gonna start a podcast? You've been
well,
talking about it for 3
probably
years, but you're waiting to be perfect. Good luck.
He's probably got one, but he's probably got like 100,000 listeners a week, and he thinks he's some fucking Joe Rogan motherfucker. And like, there is. I'm twofold on this situation because there's validity sometimes in that sort of conversation and that sort of name calling, I guess. Not really name calling, but trolling. But then there's times where it's just kind of like, cool.
It's kind of funny though.
Yeah.
It's like he took the time out to comment.
Yeah, I'm about to troll his ass and see where he fucking lives and see what he does so we can dissect him a little more.
That's I don't know who was saying this, but they were talking about how they would just dive deeper into people who like would give things on Twitter like hey, so what a part of me that you didn't like, and then just find out that they just wanted to say something. It's just maybe just stirring the pot a little bit because this is totally a convention. Everybody's welcome. I'm
totally fucking lost. Anyways, he's got a fucking picture with Shinedown as his cover. Yeah, credibility. You're in the fucking Nickelback bucket, bro. He's got his quote is, "The universe is under no obligation to make sense to you." Okay.
Thanks for stealing Neil deGrasse Tyson's work.
Yeah. I don't think Neil would be very happy with your judgment of people with man buns and beards.
Or the plagiarism, blatant plagiarism. If you and I both knew.
No, he quoted Neil deGrasse.
Did he actually say it on there?
Yeah.
Okay.
He quoted it.
So he's not original enough to come up with his own quote.
Yeah.
Beyond man bun and beard convention.
Yeah. Cool.
That's his quote.
Isn't that like a Duncan Trussell or Joe Rogan thing that they hate on? I think it's Joe Rogan that hates on that.
I don't know if Joe Rogan completely hates on it. It's that he had this one guy who just doesn't understand it, putting it back. Like it's sometimes here's the thing I don't get is, okay, so I have long hair, right? Clearly I put it up. Why don't you give girls shit?
Right.
Why are you giving me shit?
Here's my thing about having long hair and a beard. Here are the caveats as to why I'm growing my hair out again and have a beard. A, I like to sleep in late, so I'm not going to fucking shave. You know why? Because I enjoy that last glass of whiskey before I go to bed, and that's just the last glass that puts me a little over the edge to wake up just a little bit early to shave. So go fuck yourself. I'm living my most comfortable life. B, I don't want to go get a haircut. It's an hour out of my day that I have to sit there in a fucking chair and have an awkward conversation with someone that I know that I'm paying money to, and I have to tip on top of that money. Sometimes the conversations are good. I don't want to spend that hour. I don't want to spend that hour once a month. I don't want to pay that however much money, because you can't pay $20 to someone and trust them about your haircut, right? You go to Sports Clips. Oh, it's $15. Yeah, it's $15. They'll give you a fucking A, crew cut, B, bowl cut. You got the choice. They don't give you the kind of haircut that you actually want. You say, take about a half an inch off. They just got out of beauty school. So they're like, half an inch. Yep, looks about right. And it's really 2 inches. They fuck your head up every single fucking time.
Yeah.
So you have to go to the place that you got to pay a little extra money for the haircut, $45, $50. They do it nice, but you can't afford to do that because you're spending your money on other useful things.
Shinedown tickets.
Yeah, Shinedown tickets. So the other thing to why I don't give a fuck.
No, wait, are you saying you're saving your money to not get a haircut to buy something? Because that completely negates what I just said.
No, I just don't want to spend my money.
Okay, because
I don't want to spend my money on a haircut.
Okay, because then never mind, not Shinedown tickets.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with Shinedown. I don't know any one of their songs, but go on, I'm sorry.
Everyone that listens to Shinedown think that they wrote the song Simple Man, and it was Leonard Skinner. So
they covered that song?
Yeah. And everyone's like, oh, have you heard Simple Man by Shinedown? And it's like, it's fucking Leonard Skinner, dude. But anyways, that's another reason why you don't get haircuts, because it costs money and it's time consuming.
Growing it out because maybe you had a friend that went through cancer and chemo and watched him go bald.
And you want to donate your locks. Yeah. So go fuck yourself, because this is the thing. Having long hair and a beard for most people is a sign of yeah, I'm cool and I'm hip, but for some people, they just don't give a fuck. They're worried about other things. Like us three at this table talking, we're concerned about other things than our fucking hair and our personal hygiene. So, oh, you're part of the Man Bun Beer Convention. Yeah. Okay. Well,
I will say that I really do enjoy hygienic products, though.
yeah, we all like to be clean, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, but just to like stereotype, he listened in for 4 seconds.
Yeah, it's because it's an easy access point.
Yeah.
Rather than talking about the content.
Yeah, he listened in for 5 minutes, probably heard talk of drugs and was like, oh, these long-haired, bearded fucking hippies.
Yeah, but if they had any idea of like my own personal history, they'd just be like, okay, it's completely not
or
true.
any of our histories or what we do. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop ranting.
What is his like crew cut convention? I don't know.
He's
I can't
losing
think of
his
anything.
hair. Let me just look real quick again.
Just get the address so we can donate.
I mean, he actually looks like a pretty nice guy. I just don't know why you want to go up that road. Anyways, back to meaningful talk. What were we talking about before that?
Shinedown. Nickelback. Is Shinedown from Canada?
No, I don't know. I saw actually Shinedown open for Van Halen, and they were actually a fucking. When I was like my 16th, I believe, or 17th birthday, I saw.
They've been around that long?
Yeah, that was when they first came out.
Mm.
Went and saw Van Halen. My Uncle Kurt got me tickets for my birthday. Me and my dad, and I think my brothers went. We went and saw Van Halen. Shinedown open. It was actually like a good show. Like, I mean, I like that style of music, but if you're gonna be a fucking hater, then.
Is it like Nickelback?
Yeah.
So just like the poppy rock?
Yeah.
I know nothing about this Shinedown.
Neither do I.
You would know
name,
the song.
The name is familiar.
They're up there with like the band Saliva.
Okay.
I don't know Saliva.
No,
either.
maybe not Saliva. I don't know. Damn it. I don't think my Uncle Kurt's listening, but he would know. Which he likes. I mean, whoever.
So, I know one song, is Simple Man.
Yeah, which is.
But I don't know
Lynyrd
the
Skynyrd
context
song.
of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So we were talking about Purpose Spark, and then we
Gave a plug to that guy.
gave a plug to the douche. But back to, so I didn't get to go. Still mad about it. Oh, that's what TJ said. Sorry, T. But back to, so your journey that's brought you to South America. So what are your plans in South America?
Yeah, so the retreat center Aloha Keakua, it's a permaculture farm, it's a hostel, and it's a retreat center. The ultimate goal is 100% sustainability. Not there yet. That's a
So like an Ubuntu, or however you want to say it.
what's that?
Ubuntu, Ubuntu, where like people are in a community and they give what they have and they don't need like there's no like money or anything. It's an exchange of your abilities and whatnot, I guess, for lack of a better term.
I guess in a sense, yeah, for sure. I mean, it still exists in the paradigm of a business, and money's a part of it. I don't think we have to give up money to live a fulfilling and solution-based life. I think we need to change our relationship to it for sure. But yeah, it's we don't need as much as we think we do. If we know how to rely on other people and rely on our skills and give and take as we need and as others need. And I really have a strong desire to learn how to grow food, to get better with farming and that aspect. So I'm so grateful to have this opportunity to go learn all of this and how to apply that more deeply into my life.
How did this come about, the opportunity?
So I went there, and then
Was this where you went for the ayahuasca retreat?
yeah, same
Oh,
retreat
same
center,
place?
same
Okay.
people. So it's interesting, the story of Aloha Keakua. Basically, my friend Ryan, his dad passed away suddenly, and he started traveling, and he made it to Colombia, and he had the sense of like, okay, I'm home now, and bought this land that basically everyone told him that you'd never be able to use anything with, and built this center from scratch and really started diving into who he was. And then a couple of the next partners basically came with the same story. You know, my father passed away. I want to help. I want to build this. And I think now there's like 4 or 5 partners with similar stories. And so me being there like 2 days after I found out that my father passed away was just a really profound experience for me.
Oh yeah.
And you know, and then a couple months later, I was asked to come down and give it a shot and participate and see what I can add and see what I can learn and go from there. Yeah.
So are you going to be just living there, or are you going to be like a teacher, teach something there?
I really don't know yet. I'll definitely be living there. You know, it's basically come down, we'll see how things manifest and how you fit into the picture, and we'll go from there.
Will you continue partaking in the medicine? What are they called? Medicine
Ceremonies.
Ceremonies. Yeah.
Yeah.
God, I couldn't think of the word. Will you still be like participating in the medicine ceremonies, or will you be more of like a facilitator?
I will not facilitate the ayahuasca. That's a long process, and I don't have a desire to do that. I'll probably be participating for sure.
Yeah, but can like a normal Westerner person become a facilitator, or does it have to be kind of like a shamanistic South American, born and bred?
No. You don't. It's not this like only certain people can do it. You have to dedicate your whole life to it.
What constitutes it, or like what's like the process?
Well, I don't know a lot. I would say, first of all, you have to find a teacher.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's plenty of Westerners that have went down there and never left and dedicated their life to ayahuasca. And the guys that facilitate at Aloha Keakua, their two brothers, Miguel and Luis, they've probably drank medicine over 500 times.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah.
Are they like super enlightened, or are they just like?
They're humans for sure. They have their stuff, but they're very, very insightful, beautiful, loving creatures for sure that can help a lot of people.
What were they before?
I don't know a whole lot of their backstory.
Maybe they grew from ayahuasca itself.
Ooh.
Maybe we all did.
Well, we all came from the earth. We're all mycelium.
Yeah.
In an organic level, at some capacity, we were once mycelium. I think. I don't know.
Well, we all started off the single cell that divided into dual cells still within all of us.
Ooh, that's a good topic of a discussion. What's your take on like creation? How do you think all this happened? Because Barry and I talk for hours about how we think it happened back and forth and that sort of thing, but
I'm fascinated with different cultures' creation stories, and for me, like, that's my favorite entertainment. Like, but again, it's one of those things that I don't really feel I need to know. Like, I don't care a whole lot about how it happened, why it happened. It's like, I'm here, so it happened in some sort of way.
That must be a relaxing mentality to just be like, eh. So you don't care about what came first, the chicken or the egg?
I don't.
I need that. I need that.
See if I'm going to be invited back.
No. I need that though. I want to get there. I just, because like we'll talk about it and I'll be like, and I'll tell Barry, I'll be like, I don't really fucking care. But then the more I think about it, I'm like, fuck, I actually do care.
Yeah, I care about it a lot because I think that everything, even contained within this universe, stars, planets, plants, humans, animals, there's a birth and death cycle. Because I was talking to you about this, is like a lot of people think that death is the opposite of life, and it's not. In my point of view, the opposite of life is anti-life. It's just a different aspect of life. Birth is the opposite of death. So universes themselves, and we know that this universe will die of a heat death.
From the sun.
No. The sun will expand into a red giant and destroy our solar system, but the universe itself, where everything is still, all the last light of the white dwarfs turn into brown dwarfs, and everything just kind of like speeds up, will be the heat death, total collapse of the universe. All the black holes will evaporate. That's its life and death cycle, right? It was birthed from a different universe. And that's kind of how I view everything, as just a birth and like birth and death cycle. So when you're saying the chicken or the egg, it's the universe that birthed us has a different appearance than this universe, and the one that we give birth to have a different appearance. But they just morph into, like there might be a very simple universe, or there might be a very complex universe. This is the one that we live in.
Yeah. So I guess when he was just talking, it kind of like made me think about like the spiritual journey, the spiritual thing in which you're involved in. Is there a lot of debate or ideas or discussion on like the topic of like astrophysics, or like what he's talking about, kind of like actual like planetary, physical happenings or physical aspects of it? Or is it more on the kind of idealistic, spiritualistic level?
It's like more external compared to internal.
Yeah, exactly.
In a lot of the circles that I run in, it's more the internal experience. I think the best way I can understand anything is by understanding myself. And sometimes I think I'm a very complex creature. Sometimes I think I'm not, and I just make it all up. So there's
making things more complicated than they need to be.
Yeah. So either way, whichever way it is, there's something that I can understand about myself through that all. I got friends that will talk about the physics and the quantum world like crazy, and I got friends that don't care about it at all.
Yeah.
It fascinates me, but it's something that I don't debate, because it's like who the hell really knows?
Right.
Well, this is the thing that gets me, is there is an answer. And Neil deGrasse Tyson said it's like learning how to play chess by watching it. So we're just trying to figure out the rules of everything. That's why I always say reality exists in between neuroscience and quantum mechanics, the external world versus the internal world. But there is an answer. There is a reason or reasoning behind it might be meaningless, but the universe did start. It will end. There was before the universe? Like the Big Bang's real and all this, life just started by an electrical storm that hit a water molecule that's somehow kickstarted it alive, and that's why we have electricity and stuff like you're saying in our brain. And then through evolution of being moles during the dinosaur times, coming out after, all that can be explained, but it doesn't explain before.
Right.
And I don't think, because we all base these things off of light, like, we can only see the light up until this point. We haven't created something that can look beyond light, like look beyond, the tiny pinhole that we started off as, because that started off, we were somewhere else.
Right.
Even if it goes into nothingness, right? Nothingness is still somethingness, because you can define it.
And I think that maybe like the spiritual aspect or the spiritual approach to it is kind of that's just a way to understand it at a different level, because it's like we were instead of looking external, you're looking internal. So I think that maybe like with everything in the universe and that is known, there's two things, right? There's dark, there's light, there's black, there's white, there's internal, there's external, there's spiritual, there's metaphysical, I guess. So like, for the people for like the Newtons and the Einsteins that were looking externally for things, there's also, on the contrary, the people looking internally for things. And I think that a long time we're trying to connect the two, the spirituality, and the whatever.
Yeah, that's why I always think
the cosmology.
Yeah.
And so like there's that missing link, and I think that could be like the key to figuring it all out. Or they don't fucking have anything to do with each other.
Well, no, we're from it. Like the quantum universe created us, which is the neuroscience universe in our own head. Right. So from all that,
but you're talking about external physical.
Yeah.
But what is the gas? What's the driving motor? I think now that I'm talking about it, I think that it could be two different things. I think that like the physical is one thing, but then the energy, like the soul, the essence is like another thing, and they're driven from different things.
Yeah. I also think that so a squirrel gathers nuts, right? bear hibernates in the winter. Humans have this natural desire to never be sated in anything it is.
Never be what?
Sated. So perfectly content. Like, okay, we know the Titanic sank. We need to figure out why. And they figured out why. Okay, move on to the next thing. Okay, we need to figure out if
The grass is always greener.
Yeah, the idea is like, okay, I can even just take it on a personal level. I have accomplished this with my life, but now this needs work. I need this, I need that. You're just, like a squirrel will live the rest of its life gathering nuts, never explain why. It's just in them. There's something within us that we cannot be happy with. We can't be content. And no matter what anybody tells you, oh, I'm perfectly content. They're not.
But I think that's the journey, and I think that's like why we're here, and it's to. I definitely agree with like what you're saying about like, oh, I did this, now I need to move on, But there's like certain I guess levels to that, and it's like, okay, I'll only be a good musician if I get this synth. Then you get that synth. I'll only be a good musician if I get this drum machine. Then you get this drum machine. That's like one level. But then there's like, I'm only going to be happy if I have a house and a wife and kids. That's another level. But then there's a level that's like your personal spiritual level where you're trying to figure things out like on the internal in the internal aspect of yourself and not the external aspect. I think when you start mixing the external things and the physical things and the materialistic things, and that's when it gets hairy and like you don't really understand it. So it's kind of like, okay, well, like yoga, for instance, or meditation, like that's the most purest form of understanding yourself, because there can be no external influences. Obviously, when you just get started with both of them, you need a teacher or a DVD or something like that. So that's like making you look internally. You're not saying, oh, if I get this, I can do this. You're saying, oh, if I understand this, or if I understand this part of myself, then I'll get this part of myself. And then,
but you're always seeking further understanding of yourself for the rest of your life.
Right. But why should we not be doing that?
No, I'm saying that's the human condition.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm
not saying it's bad or wrong. I'm saying that's the human condition, is to constantly seek more, to never be happy internally or externally with anything and everything that we have.
I think that the point of it is to getting to a certain level where you can just level, where you know, like you're cool. You know that you're going to want more and that you want to do more, but you're cool at this level. Like, okay, I can be even keel here. You know, as long as I'm not down where I used to be. Like, okay, I have the job I want.
Yeah, but it still doesn't. That's just suppressing it. Like, it doesn't get rid of that
I don't
drive.
think it has to be.
It's not like a squirrel goes like, okay, I got this much nuts, I'm good for the rest of my life. It still wants to gather nuts, even though it doesn't. Let's just use that for example.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Like, it's an internal drive.
You're like, okay, right here is perfectly fine. I'm just going to let it lay right here. Everything's good. But you still have that. You can't get rid of it.
Yeah.
It'll still always be there.
But do you think that that's conditioned over time? Like, when we were first cave people?
Yeah, I think that's the reason why we're here. Because if we were perfectly happy with being cave people, we would still be cave people. But like, we had a tool, and that tool wasn't enough for us. We had a piece of chalk that wasn't, that.
But do you think that was driven by one individual?
No, I think it was a collective.
I think it was maybe because to me, when you think about that, it's like 5 cavemen. 4 of them are content. 1 of them is not. He wants more. That's the person that becomes the leader. There's always the alpha, and that sort of thing. And I think that that's what drives that desire to want to do more. I mean, I think it's definitely innate within us to want to do more, but I think it's just kind of like your definition of what you define as more for yourself and where your level of, I guess, neutrality is, because I wouldn't say your level of comfortability.
Yeah, well, some people, like Elon Musk, for example, he wants to go to Mars. Some people don't.
Right.
Jeff Bezos wants to go to Mars as well. Now they're kind of competing. Who's going to be, there will always be specific people. Like, okay, one person doesn't care about Mars, but the other one wants to create better art. The other one wants to, like you said, like raise a family. It's just, there's always something like, okay, you created that tool in the cave. Oh, that's a really cool tool. It's like a little thing that's pointy, and like, what if I put something on there to make it go so we don't have to be close to them? And then there's the arrow. And then, okay, let's make a different type of bow. Once the more you pull back, the less pressure and pounds it gives.
Right.
And then so on and so forth. So it's not like, I'm not talking about in an ego sense at all. I'm just talking about, we always just want to build upon and expand what we know.
Right. What do you think, in your experience, do you think that what he's talking about, like the state of just being there, like never wanting more, do you think that's achievable?
I don't know. What the thoughts I was having is like, can I simultaneously be motivated and content?
That's a good way to look at it.
Which I think I can. I think that might even be the ultimate goal, is like, can I maintain neutrality and peace throughout all of my experiences while continuing to create new experiences? Because we're always constantly creating our reality. I think when it comes to my understanding of creation, how I really understand that is by watching how I create myself. Like, how am I manifesting the things that I desire? How am I using visualization? How am I focusing? How am I concentrating? And how am I working and taking action towards every one of my goals? When I'm in that process, I'm content. I'm still desiring. I'm still wanting. I'm still creating. But when I know I'm steadfast in that process of creation, I'm centered. I'm in alignment with who I am, and I'm pretty genuinely happy. You know, and of course there's setbacks, there's things that are going to throw me off, and that's where the lessons come in. I think that's where maybe that's karma. Okay, it's like I've been using my tools of manifestation and visualizing so hard, but I didn't create it exactly the way I needed to. So that's where I go back inward, and I'm like, all right, well, there's something I need to learn about myself. There's potential here for greater understanding. And sometimes that's a messy process, but I think just being centered in that process and knowing that, yes, I'm always going to be discovering, I'm always going to be creating, and I'm always going to be observing that process, I can stay pretty content with it.
Yeah, and so like what you're talking about, like we always want the desire to learn and, you know, the next thing, you know, like what you're saying, what he said is like being content with that, you know, not, I guess like not looking at it in the lens of like, I'm never going to be content. I'm always going to be searching for something. But if you make your mind be like, well, I'm always going to do that, but I'm content with that, you know, I guess I mean, that's a good way to look at it. But I think that maybe that's like the key to feeling comfortable with it, you know, is like, you're never going to attain the level of illustrator that you want to be, because there will always be like the next thing, you know, like you will master the human anatomy, but then you like realize and you're like, fuck, I cannot do shadows on buildings. I don't know what it is, but I cannot do shadows on buildings, you know, then you'll work for that, but you're content with like the process of it all.
It's kind of like what we were talking about maybe like 2 or 3 episodes ago about if you know it's your weakness, why are you allowing it to be your weakness?
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But like if anatomy is not a weakness of yours, it's your strength, then you don't really need to like develop it too much further.
Right.
Because where can you go with it? A lot of people say you can go a lot with it because in 3D space, upside down, backward, just, you know, whatever may possibly be. But so I guess some people are just more content than others. I guess that's kind of fits on the Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
It's like once it's met, then you're just good to go.
Well, and it's all up to the individual, right? It's all about what you really want. It's all about actually figuring out what it is you actually want as a person, which I think to roll it all into everything that we've talked about and kind of the reasoning, you know, having Danny on is just kind of like the spiritual journey and the things that you do along the way to get there, the things that are out of the norm that make you uncomfortable, like the ayahuasca retreats, the purpose spark, these non-conventional, you know, I reading it in a book type deal, because I feel like a lot of people like look for that sort of like spiritual, or, you know, even like what we talk about on a normal basis. People want that information, but they want to read it in a book. They want to be like, 2 + 2 is 4. Okay, cool. I got it. I'm enlightened now. I'm there. You know, they don't want to do the work. They want to just, they want to have it, you know, they want to go to the ayahuasca retreat and be like, oh, I have all these problems and shit. Oh, I'm just going to go do this and it'll all be better. It'll all be better. Oh, it'll make it better. And that's kind of like, you know, talking about what you were talking about, with the constant desire to always want to do better.
Yeah. Alan Watts put it perfectly. It's like, it's a desire to not want to desire.
Yeah, and I think that would be your, you know, that's enlightenment, is when you get to the state of, because when I think about like my biggest goal, which is to be able to sustain my lifestyle by working on music every day of my life, when I got to that moment, I would literally be like, okay, cool, I'm here, you know. But
I don't think you would recognize it.
I think I would recognize it because I visualize it so much in my mind. I
But
know
it won't
what it
be.
looks like.
It won't be what you think it is.
Well, and that's the thing about the ideals we hold for ourselves. Like we all have this ideal of where we want to be, and we have these goals that are helping us get us closer and closer and closer. But every time we reach that ideal or come closer to it, we shift that ideal. We add to it. We keep adding more and more and more. So ultimately, we're never ever going to get there because that's constantly evolving with how we get closer and closer to it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It's kind of like you see it off in the distance, but as you get closer to it, the details start filtering in.
Right. Yeah. Because like, yeah. Oh, I made it to the city. Oh, now I need to go to this place. Now I need to go to that place, like that. Should we wrap it up?
Sure.
Anyone have anything they want to discuss before?
No, it's nice having you on, by the way.
Yeah, man, it was so much fun.
This was fun.
Different point of view too.
And it's just nice to like hear other people like give their experience on things, especially that we're interested in talking about. Sometimes when I listen to podcasts and they have like certain guests on, and like the podcast is framed in a certain way already, but then there's like people that come on and start talking about stuff. I'm just kind of like, the interviewer has to be like boring or bored,
To some degree. Well, it depends on who's paying for it.
Yeah.
Like if it's like, I don't know, like tonight. Not saying that Jimmy Fallon is bored. Right?
Yeah.
That there's advertisers paying for that sort of questions.
Yeah. But yeah, we should have you
If
on
that
again.
makes sense.
Yeah, I can't wait to come back.
Tell us about your trip or journey.
Yeah, we can do it
beforehand, afterhand, before August, or I'm sorry, October.
Yeah, we can do it via like FaceTime too, because now that I think I have the computer figured out, we can do like online shit.
Cool. Yeah, I'll be a regular.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Well, yeah, this is fun. And are you said you're gonna start doing a podcast?
Yeah, I got the equipment. It's one of those things I haven't taken the action on yet. I've done some like recordings with myself, and it's just like, well, this is weird. There's no dialogue. Like nobody's gonna have their attention here for more than 5 minutes. So I think I really need to work on doing it with other people.
Yeah. Well, yeah, if anyone, check out what we talked about tonight, the Purpose Spark, check out the ayahuasca retreats if you want to go down to South America and, watch your grandma crawl out of a tree and figure out all your biggest quandaries that you have in your life. As always, go to our YouTube channel, subscribe, follow us on podbean.com or realityorpodcast.com. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all that good shit. Gonna post this.
And then join us next time for the Beard and Man Bun Convention.
Yeah, the beard. Yeah.
We're gonna have Shinedown next.
Yeah. Next week will be Shinedown, and we will talk about how they wrote their best hit, Simple Man, and the possibility that they could have plagiarized it.
Aho.
Adios, Padres.
Thank you all for listening. We'll see you next time.